Okay. So I deem it a great privilege to stand in front of great minds like this to explore the opportunities of emerging technologies, not just on our personal lives, our businesses, our institutions, as well as our economies. So in Digitank, we strongly believe that technology is not just a supporting tool, it is the strategy. And in building a strategy, there are certain key areas that we believe no organization can overlook. To begin with is disaster recovery, because resilience is no longer an option. Then generative AI, because intelligence is evolving. Generative AI is no longer theoretical, it's practical, it's actual, it's transformative. In fact, it's the next wave of creativity and productivity. Then the last bit will be cloud security, because trust, we believe, is everything. Today we are here not for the event, but we have assembled a community of people who are thinkers and doers at the same time. So this is where I feel very, very interesting. That wherever you find yourself, whether you're a policymaker, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you're a cloud architect, today is your next nexus, where insights meets action. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Pakwesi Amozin Poli. I'll be your MC for today's occasion. Thank you very much. So before we go to the next stage, I really want to touch a bit of what we do. This wouldn't take much of our time. Okay, so this will take just 5 minutes, then quickly we move to the next stage of the agenda. Okay, so the name of the firm is Digitank Technologies. We are, okay, so we are an AWS advanced partner as well as a Fortinet strategic partner in this region. So we take pride in saying that we are one of the few partners that were able to achieve that advanced status in this region. And so both AWS and Fortinet deem us as a strategic partner in this region. The core of our success has always been translating customers' pain points into technological opportunities. At the long run, we want to ensure that whatever investment you are making in whether AWS, whether your technology solutions you find yourself in, you are making the right investment, you are getting the right returns out of it. So within this period, we have footprints in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and virtually all over the world. Yes, but physically, this is where we have footprints. Then, as I said, the core of our success is always winning with the customer. Not transactional in our ways. So the company was built on 3 success pillars: business transformation, operational excellence, and protection assurance. Within this period, this is our qualifications. So to begin with, Amazon API Gateway Delivery, Amazon Redshift Delivery, AWS Glue Delivery, AWS database migration service delivery, Amazon Dynamo DB delivery, AWS web delivery. The list goes on and on. And the good thing is we have personnel in this region to ensure that whatever you imagine, it becomes a reality. Sometimes people will project all these things, and when there is a pain point, we now have to get someone from another region. We believe time is money, so we have trained people in our region to ensure that whenever there is an issue, people within our region can quickly attend to it. Also, as I said in the beginning, we are advanced tier service, authorized commercial reseller, AWS public sector partner, and AWS well architected partner program. So these are customers we have worked with. Rain Oil is in Nigeria, Broad Spectrum, Big Pay, Chapel Hill is in Nigeria, so United Pensions, Volta River, Fidelity, Asa Data Bank, Codesys. The lists are minimal. If I was supposed to list everything here, I'm sure I would need another screen. Yes. So we had to just pinpoint a few. So these are services we render. Within this period, we take pride again in saying that we are one of the few partners in West Africa. We are the only partner that has the dexterity and skills when it comes to FortiGate Sophos on AWS. Many a times we meet a lot of customers and they don't want to change their security posture. Whatever they have on premises, they want to replicate it in the cloud. And so if you are using Sophos, you are using FortiGate, we give that assurance that we can replicate that same security posture in the cloud. And it takes a lot of dexterity to make that happen. We are one of the few partners within this region, West Africa, that are able to do this. Then we also take pride in cost optimization. We have this business sense. As I said, we are not transactional in our ways. We are not transactional in our ways. As I said, if there's a need for us to ensure the investments you are making, you get the necessary returns, we give that counsel, not necessarily ensuring that we are taking huge amounts of money from your end. Then the next will be disaster recovery, then workload migration on AWS. My interest is the generative AI, Amazon Q, then analytics on AWS. Another good thing I want to say before the next person comes in is that we build capacity in these regions. And so, because we don't want our clients to, we want to invest in our clients, we provide training services to our clients at no cost, just to ensure that, once again, whatever investments you are making, you get the necessary returns out of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Digital. Once again, I welcome you to Cloud, AI, and Nexus. Thank you very much. So, we are going to invite our CTO in the name of Mr. Babajide Akande. Babajide Akande.
Once again, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for coming to the Cloud and AI Nexus 2025, powered by Digital Technologies. We're very much indeed happy to see everyone with us today. So please give me a few minutes for the slide to come up, and I'll run us through some thoughts, very high-level executive briefing as to how we see technology play out, and would very briefly also explore the past, the present, and the future. My name is Babajide Akode. I should introduce myself properly. I'm Nigerian and also African, but I work very closely with the team here in Ghana. So I'm happy to be here today, and I would take us through some of the thoughts we have. Question, am I missing anything? I need some help. Okay, 1 minute. Apologies, please. Just a few seconds to sort this out. All right, thank you. Yes. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty much for us to cast our mind back about 2 decades ago. What did we see during that period? Online businesses began to emerge. And the core of those businesses were centered around one networks, enterprise resource planning tools that help businesses have the full picture of their entire business. We also saw the emergence of customer relationship management tools that created that nearness to the customer environment. And eventually, we were able to have a system where these companies, who were pretty much online businesses, became using the tools and the technology available to them at that time to become competitive. Fast forward, all those companies eventually had something that stood them out clearly for their time, and it was centered around accessibility and also operational efficiencies. As we move on, fast forward to today, we do have businesses that we fairly would like to term them as digital businesses. What are those core technologies again that have enabled this kind of businesses? We've seen e-commerce, we've seen things like self-service, process automation, and of course, very importantly, we have also spotlighted how these companies have used the integration of these systems to deliver greater value, customer experience. And when you again look at those trends, we are very quick to sum it up as digital transformation. It also did create competitiveness for the businesses who got in there, largely because there was clear visibility to their data, and they had the ability to be able to talk to customers at a very fast pace. Now, what are we seeing about the future? And as many observers would note, the future really is about us redefining businesses. And those traditional businesses we know today will be completely redesigned. And we're seeing this emerge. And when we use the word completely redefined, we're referring to a new kind of business, which some industry leaders have termed the frontier business. We will take very specific look at what these frontier businesses look like, what exactly they are, the attributes they put forward, and how we as business owners can latch on to the benefits of businesses of this nature. I would also very quickly touch on why we think AWS is a great platform to help you build the infrastructure that will drive your AI transformation initiatives. One common thing we should watch out for these frontier businesses, I beg your pardon, would be how they are leveraging AI transformation for their competitiveness. And let's take a quicker look at it, because I would like to spend some time here. So we must be familiar with the term, the future is now. And when you look at that, really, it's That statement is usually said to emphasize the urgency of what needs to be done. But realistically, what truly can we say is the future? It's about us being able to distinguish that the future is not really a time yet to come, because a time to come really is already here. And I'll put that in context. I try to understand, giving a clear interpretation to what we can really say our future would look like. No one knows. It could be 5 years, it could be a month, or even a second. But what is fundamentally important for us as to how to see business is to understand that from a technology point of view, that time is here. And the tools necessary to make you decide what your future will look like is available to us today. So frontier businesses demonstrate a few traits that we should take note of. These frontier businesses look remarkably different from companies that we know today because they are agile and they have the ability to scale rapidly. Another important feature we see about these frontier businesses, they are structured around on-demand intelligence, and I will explain that in a bit. They are usually powered by a mix of human resources and robots, agents. Those are some of the characteristics. And they are beginning to use AI and AI agents to augment their delivery of services, complementing the effort of humans. Another important point that you see about this business, as I've mentioned earlier, they are quite rapid in their approach. They can quickly scale, and ultimately they generate greater value for all stakeholders, be it the shareholders, customers, or even employees. So to put all of that in context, we can clearly define a frontier business as a company that has new organizational blueprint, one that blends machine intelligence with human judgment. And of course, they build systems that are AI operated but are human led. So this is the definition of the kind of businesses that we'll see in the future. And as leaders here today, employees, we need to start asking ourselves the right question. What role will my organization play in this journey? And how can we leverage the benefits for competitive advantage? One other important thing we need to know about these frontier firms I've talked about is that we would see them heavily deploy digital labor. And that's essentially when you use robots in place or perhaps complement the human effort within the organization. We would also see a redefinition of what human resources would mean. And so we're proposing that we'll begin to see things like intelligent resources that would totally redefine the function of managing resources, because we would have both hybrid teams in place, machines and also human beings working. And I should take a point here that some of this may look very science fiction, but we're beginning to see elements of it creep into industry. And just like we had the dot-com era and the digital transformation era, this will sweep in no time. So whether or not we're ready for it, we must remain aware of these possibilities and begin to prepare our businesses to either benefit from it or perhaps shield ourselves from the impact that can happen. The last point is as well, we'll see these frontier firms represent their structure no longer as organizational charts where they are highly driven by functions and roles, but we'll see more of roles leading the job that needs to be done, leading how they represent their organizational chart. And this will be referred to more as work charts. So when you go to the workplace, it will be defined clearly about what job needs to be done and not the roles that we need to have, because we are able to bring together machines and humans to deliver on those jobs. So having said all of this, how do you see this transformation playing out? And why is it creating the new workspace we're seeing? When you look at the data, and this is from the Work Index data collected by Microsoft and LinkedIn, you will find out that they have taken the productivity signals and they are finding out that 53% of leaders say that productivity must increase. And the reasons are not far-fetched. The demand from shareholders, the demand from the economy, and the competitiveness that exists today requires that productivity must increase. We're also seeing that from the data that 80% of the global workforce, both the employees and even leaders as well, are laying claims to the fact that they lack enough time and energy to do their work. Again, this is evident. We are hugely distracted in today's world. Many engagements happening simultaneously, and we spend more time trying to attend to these disruptions. So we're beginning to see things like many more meetings are holding past regular work hours, largely because teams are converging in the digital world. There are engagements we hold with our colleagues in Canada at Digitank that pushes us to working beyond the regular 9 to 5. More of this will come because teams will be spread across different locations. You have colleagues who work in businesses in Ghana, but perhaps are residing in other parts of the world, and we must collaborate. We're also seeing, as I mentioned, the telemetry suggesting that during the 9 to 5 period, employees are getting hugely distracted. In fact, there are some sources that suggest that every 2 minutes, employees are getting distracted by pings, by notifications of email, WhatsApp groups, student groups, and all of that coming through. And so that ability to put together quality work, dedicated and concentrated, may be difficult as we go forward. So these are the reasons why AI transformation, or perhaps not totally, but these are some of the reasons why AI transformation is taking a hold, because we need to complement productivity in some form. Lastly, I've talked about the distractions we're getting from chats, and we're beginning to see over an increment of about 15% year on year with this data showing how people are unable to settle in. So in the end, these transformations are supposed to address the fundamentals. And whether you're running a small business or you're an entrepreneur, the fundamentals of business are almost the same. We're seeking to achieve some common goals, be it having faster business growth or improved customer experience that can drive increased revenue or possibly reduce our costs. Businesses are also looking for ways to optimize their business process so they can drive in efficiency. We're also seeing how businesses want to boost productivity and the general employee experience. We do work with a younger workforce today. Are we able to ensure that they are committed, focused on work? The employee experience has to be unique. And so generally, once these fundamentals drive the way businesses are operated, we need to be able to respond accordingly with the right kind of technology that makes us achieve them. So customers reach out to us from time to time to ask. AI is everywhere. There's so much buzz about it. In fact, you get sometimes really confused about the amount of information out there. So where do we start? And at Digitank, we're very quick to always advise that the first thought that comes to mind is, what kind of decision are we doing, a buy or build approach when it comes to adopting AI? And we typically always recommend that we follow this progressively, starting off by using a buy approach, where we reuse AI tools from platforms like AWS and others to be able to drive our AI transformative journey. And for us at Digitank, we propose, beyond going into AI, and my colleague, Enoch will discuss some of these strengths and also wisdom. How we can first understand what we need to really say that we are employing AI as a tool in our environment. But more importantly, whatever decisions we make around AI, one starting point that we always would like to push forward to customers is how you can have a virtual assistant like Amazon Q that helps you coordinate and put together some of the informations that you need on a regular basis that can help you to become more productive in the course of work. And progressively, as your organizations begin to mature, we begin to consider adapting this technology and driving them towards more advanced AI solutions and tools that you can build on top of AWS. So that said, why do we really think AWS is a good starting point for businesses? The first and perhaps the most important thing is that you are able to move quickly. Speed, agility is a strategic advantage in the game today, and AWS offers you that. The details, my colleague will get into that. You also have the ability to customize your needs effectively on AWS. And we think that is an important point to note as you drive forward on your AI transformation journey. The last point is scaling. When I talked about the faces of technology, we've seen that most of these businesses that took technology as a competitive advantage leveraged on scale, resilience, and also agility. So AWS affords you the opportunity to do this rapidly, and you can roll out solutions in record time. So in summary, I want us to reflect on these words, that intelligence will rewire businesses. It will create that competitive advantage or disadvantage, as the case may be, if we do not adopt early enough. And every leader, every business representative needs to start thinking of a blueprint to drive that. Because ultimately, what separates the leaders in the pack comes down to how well you are able to boost productivity, increase revenue, and drive for change in your environment. And that's what this technology affords us today. So the time to act is now, really, because the earlier you begin to shape the concept and strategy you intend to use, the better. If there's anything we shouldn't have in doubt in our mind, is how are we going to adapt? I think that's very important for everyone to reflect on. How are we really going to adapt to these changes? Are we going to sit on the sidelines or get partners, form teams to create the innovative environment that can drive the uptake of new technology in our environment? Now, having said all of this, it may be possible that as I run through speedily through the slides, we may not have captured the very essence, maybe not everyone may have captured the very essence of why we need to start shaping our AI journey. And I said to myself, using my own personal AI assistant, how can you summarize this for me? How am I able to put together all the statements I've made in the slide and sum it up in a few words? And I was intrigued by the outcome of what I saw. As we go on, we'll share with you the summary of the slides, put together all AI generated in a conversation that you can listen to. And the reason why I'm doing this is nothing is really new about AI generating voice and video. But what is important that I want us to take home is to reflect on what is possible within our environment. And the summary of those audio, AI generated audio context will be shared with us just to capture a glimpse of what we are seeing today, the technology deliver. That said, I will encourage every one of us to scan and speak to us. We can have a pre-assessment to help you understand your environment, where to start, what are the things you should look at. Are you truly ready to adopt AI? Do you require a little more time? Is your data estate fully representing what will be useful within the AI space? And we're very willing at Digitech to have those conversations, a deep dive with you to really channel and focus how your AI transformative journey would look like. So that's pretty much my presentation this morning. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to engaging in the course of the day. Thank you.
Fantasies, what some legends want, but reality is what I really need. Me up, y'all, up and do me for real.
Thank you very much, Mr. GD. Thank you very much, Mr. The rhetorical question you asked at the end was what really intrigued me. How do we adapt? How do we adapt? Okay, so I believe everyone has scanned. Let's see how we adapt. Okay. So we want to do a quick exercise. Yes, quick exercise. Let's check Digitank on LinkedIn quickly. I believe everyone is on LinkedIn. There's something I want to show each and everyone. I think the first person to get there can get a prize or something. So if you are there, just wave your phone. Let me see that you are there. I'm also going to Digitank. Maybe I can also be the first to win that prize. Wow. You are there. Who else is there? Oh, what of? Who else is there? You are also there. You are there. I'm waiting for people on this lane. Please, are you there? Anyone from this lane? Okay, so this is the exercise. Please follow us. It's as simple as that. Yes, it's as simple as that. Thank you very much for obeying. All right, so quickly we're going to the next agenda. We have a prominent person from the Ministry of Communication. He's in the person of Bishop Dr. Samuel Enchi Jeche. So he's had 30 years in the civil service, founder and general overseer of the Divine Praise and Worship Ministry, the proprietor of Alvimax Christian School. He has contributed significantly to the digital ecosystem as civil servant. He currently leads the IT class in the Ghana Civil Service. Most reforms for these IT officers in the civil service were led by Bishop Dr. Samuel Enchi Jeche. He is now the Director of Digital Technology of the Ministry of Communication. Please, with a round of applause, let's welcome him as he mounts the stage. He's going to give us a keynote from the ministry. Let's not stop clapping until he gets here. Let's not stop clapping until he gets here.
Thank you very much. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm here on behalf of the Minister of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation. This week is a very busy week for him. He's attending equally important programs today. So I am wearing his shoes this morning. Any word you hear from me as I stand here is not my word or my words. They are the words of the Honorable Minister Sam Nati George. So a keynote address delivered by the Honorable Minister of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. It is an honor to address you at Cloud Nexus 2025, Ghana's premium forum for cloud and AI innovation. My sincere appreciations goes to Digital Technologies Limited for convening this event, bringing together visionaries, tech leaders, and policy makers to shape the future of Africa's digital economy. At the Ministry of Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations, we are driven by a singular vision to propel Ghana into a fully digitized, inclusive, knowledge-based economy. Cloud computing stands as a cornerstone of this vision, offering infrastructure and agility needed for innovation, resilience, and national competitiveness. We recognize Digital as a key player in this transformation. Their expertise in business transformation, operational excellence, and cybersecurity assurance aligns with our mission to modernize digital infrastructure, protect national data assets, and empower businesses with the tools necessary for success in the digital age. The critical role of cloud computing. Cloud computing is no longer an option. It is an imperative. Its impact stretches across sectors, enabling one, smart public service delivery through AI-powered e-government solutions. National data sovereignty that strengthens security and digital governance. 3, business innovations where startups and enterprises scale seamlessly with cloud-based platforms. Rural connectivity, ensuring that digital transformations reaches every Ghanaian regardless of geographical location. Our commitment as government is to create an ecosystem where affordable, secure, and sovereign cloud services power healthcare, education, finance, and agri-tech, laying the foundation for a truly digital first Ghana. Now, partnership as the catalyst for change. Digital transformation is not a solo mission. It is a collaborative endeavor. We continue to work alongside private cloud providers, global technology leaders, startups, and academia to one, expand and modernize our digital infrastructure. Two, to support cloud adoption among SMEs, the backbone of Ghana's economy. Three, elevate cybersecurity to meet international standards. And last but not the least, build regulatory framework that foster innovation while protecting national interests. DigiBank, through its strategic pillars, plays a pivotal role in helping organizations adopt cloud technology whilst ensuring robust cybersecurity standards, critical for Ghana's digital future. Now let's look at clouds in action, shaping a digital-first Ghana. Imagine a Ghana where one, startups launch globally with seamless cloud native solutions. Two, health workers in rural areas access real-time patients' data securely. Four, farmers leverage AI-powered insight via cloud platforms to boost agricultural yield. And five, young innovators develop digital solutions that compete internationally right from their hometowns. These possibilities underscore why our government, in collaboration with industry players like Digitank, is committed to scaling cloud adoption for every Ghanaian. Now a call to action to the industry pioneers, developers, policymakers, and partners gathered here today. Ghana is open for digital business. We are investing in world-class infrastructure, refining digital policies, and ensuring that data security and cloud innovation remains at the forefront of our agenda. But success demands collaboration. We invite you to co-create, co-invest, and co-deliver solutions that will redefine Ghana's cloud landscape. Together, let us harness the power of cloud technology to connect our people, accelerate our economy, and safeguard our digital sovereignty. In conclusion, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am confident that Cloud Nexus 2025 will not only spark groundbreaking discussions, but will also forge partnerships that translate ideas into actions. Let us unite in building a digital Ghana, one that is powered by cloud, driven by innovation, and rooted in inclusivity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this morning I want to thank you, and may this summit be both inspiring and transformative. May God bless all of you and bless our mother Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. Please, let's keep clapping until he sits. Let's keep clapping until he sits. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doc. We appreciate your presence. Thank you very much. So when we started, I think I was the only person here, and I needed a feminine touch. So I went outside and I brought a feminine touch. Yes. So please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. It's a privilege to be here this morning with the beautiful faces, handsome faces, and I hope we'll have a very wonderful time here together. So my name is Sandra Sevaji, and I'll be your co-host for today.
You didn't mention your full name.
All right, so I have an issue pronouncing the third one.
Okay, all right. Her name is actually Sandra Akosia Sevaji. Okay, so when we started, Mr. Jide gave us the past, present, and future of IT. He took us through a journey. And the last question he asked was, how do we adapt? Then, Doc gave us the role of the ministry in this whole journey. So to answer the question of how do we adapt, I think Sandra has something for us. So Sandra, what do you have for us? What's next?
The next thing on the agenda would be data migration and disaster recovery, business resilience in the cloud age. And this will be taken by our very own Enoch France, a DevOps engineer. So Enoch, please, can we have you upstage?
A round of applause. A round of applause. He's one of our global icons. Round of applause. Round of applause. He's in Ghana, but he's working things in Nigeria, Botswana, Kenya. If you don't clap, he won't talk. Please, 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 please. Thank you very much, Mr. France.
Thank you, Kwesi. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you all, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for attending this important event. So while we wait for the slides to come up to guide our presentations, how many of us have production workloads in the cloud today? Let me see some hands up. A good number of you do. And the inverse of that, how many of us have production workloads that are running on premises? That's also a good number. Okay. So, as we begin to talk about generative AI and how it has caught wind, my CTO Babajide mentioned a few use cases, but to take full advantage of generative AI, you can't do some of its capabilities that it has to offer with your on-premises infrastructure. In view of that, you have to get your data onto the cloud. In making use of generative AI, one of the few things that AWS has come up with is the use of Gen AI to accelerate your migration and modernization to the cloud. So today I'll be focusing mainly on that and also how to create resilient workloads in AWS Cloud. So I'll begin with accelerating migrations with agentic AI. We'll look at your resiliency requirements if you want to create a well-architected solution in the cloud for it to stand the test of time. I'll talk about a few AWS services that can help guide that journey, like Elastic Disaster Recovery and AWS Backup. Now, what I'm not focusing on today, because we want this session to appeal to a wide variety of audience, it's not a 300, 400 level session, so we've made it such that the information that will be discussed today is well digestible by all of us. I also don't have code samples for our code-savvy attendees, but I can email some to you if you want after the session. Also, there are no protocol level deep dives, so I might touch on some of these services at a high level without going there deeply, but for some cases, I might touch on a few things that I believe are salient points to discuss with you. All right. So, as we begin to talk about Gen AI and its applications, how can it help boost our adoption of cloud technologies? Sometimes the learning curve to adopting some of these cloud technologies is too steep. So we have a lot of people that have attempted migrations before, but have had to roll back due to various problems that come up. Getting their various stakeholders to buy into the cloud, people transformation skills, and all that. So this service that I'm about to discuss aims to resolve some of these issues. Now, I want us to discuss the state of the enterprise workloads currently. According to Gartner, we have about 70% of workloads, production workloads, still on premises. And also, 70% of these workloads are also running legacy code. Some of them have vulnerabilities. Some of them are using old frameworks and languages. And there's a shortage of skill sets to maintain that setup. Now, this is also from McKinsey that about 300 plus Fortune 500 companies still have legacy infrastructure. We're talking about mainframes, COBOL programming languages, and so on and so forth that they need to modernize and migrate. Now, for enterprises or businesses that have attempted to migrate to the cloud and those that have successfully done that, the average time to completion, checking off all the boxes, is around 1.5 years to complete a successful migration. How do we accelerate this? For most businesses, time is money. Now, most enterprises face a myriad of problems. There's a slow transformation. There's this complex legacy systems with a shortage of the necessary skills that are needed to maintain them. Now, if you even attempt to modernize, because there's that skill gap, there's a labor-intensive process that you have to go through to even modernize this. Limited resources in terms of capacity, human capacity, and even machines to foresee some of these transformations. It's hampering growth within these enterprises and businesses. Now, for some of these workloads that we have running in on-prem environments, there's limited scale. So what we see is that when we want to create a service for our users, we go in, buy hardware, maybe a Blade server, your Dell EMCs, your HP ProLiant servers, you rack and stack them, you think about heat, ventilation, and cooling, and DR. As and when your application gains enough popularity, probably the underlying infrastructure that you purchased beforehand to handle that workload cannot scale well enough to handle that traffic that is coming in. So that is the limited scale. Some of these applications too are built in a tightly coupled manner. That way, every now and then, if you have to make changes and updates to such applications, there's a little bit of a downtime before you are able to make these changes, which also hampers growth. We've been talking about the scarcity of expertise to handle some of these old languages and frameworks. And it's especially important that enterprises address these challenges to be able to keep up with the growth and the pace of which the technological landscape is changing. Now, what does the typical transformation journey look like for most enterprises? There's the cloud migration, let's say infrastructure migration. We are talking about your virtual machines, the databases that come along with it, its associated storage systems. If you use enterprise solutions like SAPs and you have mainframes, let me just ask, how many of us have mainframes in our data set? This is really old tech. I'm curious to see. I don't think so. Great. But in the unlikely event that you still run mainframes today, modernizing such old legacy hardware is a bit problematic sometimes. Now, you also look at application modernization. We look at the 7 hours of migration. It's a lot of hours, rehosting, refactoring, replatforming, and so on. And you have to apply it to your application to make it scalable in the cloud. All this is time consuming. Not to talk of the software updates and the various framework updates that you have to do, making sure that you are developing secure software that is scalable for the future. So, then comes in agentic AI. And agentic AI seeks to use large language modules. You might have heard of the most famous one out there. The company is OpenAI and they have ChatGPT. I believe a lot of us have used it up until this point. So that is one of such LLMs. Now the LLMs that we are adopting for this agentic transformation and migration would help us process millions of lines of code per second. It also helps us understand the business logic. Why? Because sometimes documentation is scarce. You are inheriting an infrastructure that your great, probably your grandfather set up, and then you have to manage that. So if the infrastructure doesn't have any documentation to go along with it, maintaining it is somewhat problematic. So then you need something to help understand the environment, at least to some extent, to maintain it. Now, these LLMs also make use of graph and neural networks. They have various complex dependencies that they also depend on to solve problems. And they also have foundational innovations with various automations in place and various reasoning capabilities, and are able to respond in natural language to your queries. So that's what agentic AI seeks to unlock. And today we want to apply it to accelerating our migrations to the cloud. So now I want to introduce to you a new service that AWS just unveiled in their just ended reInvent. That is AWS Transform. Now AWS Transform is a fork of the Amazon Q generative AI application. But this service aims to accelerate migrations to the cloud. It is now generally available, and as of yet, it supports accelerating VMware migrations, mainframe modernizations, and .NET application replatforming and modernization as well. What does it aim to do? It provides you with a unified web experience where you can interact with this agent, and then you have the human in the loop. The AI does all the repetitive, mundane tasks, and then a human with authority is going to approve and review the suggestions that are being made. Because we are moving towards an era where humans are working with intelligence to achieve their goals. So instead of we having humans managing people, we have humans managing a bunch of AI agents to accelerate growth. Provides you with end-to-end automations to accelerate your delivery and migration to the cloud, and there are various specialized agents for various tasks, from infrastructure migration planning, code transformation, and so on. It's also goal-driven, where you give the AI an end goal of what you want to achieve, and it comes up with a plan that you can follow to achieve that goal. Like I said, there's always a human in the loop to approve things before they are executed. This in turn simplifies collaboration. You are collaborating with your fellow humans and AI to achieve organizational success. Now, AWS Transform is available, like I said earlier, in the web UI. It gives you a web experience. and it looks like so. So you're able to go in there, discuss with it what you want to achieve, and then it maps out a strategic plan for you to follow. Of course, it's not all perfect, so you can review what the AI is telling you and then make suggestions where necessary for it to adapt the migration plan it's giving you. For our fellow developers who also want to interact with AWS Transform programmatically, it is available in your most popular IDEs. I have on my screen a screenshot from Visual Studio where a developer is interactively playing with AWS Transform to achieve some .NET modernization. Now, talking about goals that you want to achieve, I have here a simulated discussion where, let's say, we have experts who have breadth of knowledge when it comes to technology, but they don't have the depth, so they are not specialists. But with the right kind of motivation and push, they can be able to see things through with the help of these generative AI capabilities from AWS Transform. Now, let's say we have here an IT generalist that wants to modernize to the cloud. Here, the instruction says, I need to simplify my migration and I also want to better understand my code. AWS Transform responds, sure, I generated that action plan for you. What does that look like? Let's see how that plays out. It does some analysis. It generates the document per the request that the user put in. At the same time, it's acting as a migration subject matter expert to assist the individual. When it comes to modernizing the code, it's also an architect, a software engineer, and it's going to look at all dependency and code mappings, make sure it's doing the right thing. It comes up with a plan that you can then adopt and a sequence that you can follow to migrate your applications in waves. Acts as a project owner, it's your developer, it's your architect. Now, for monolithic applications, when we say monolithic, the application setup is written such that it is very tightly coupled. So it decouples. It gives you a plan to decouple such an application. So that is the modularization. And then you can modernize each aspect or the various services of that application. And finally, it gives you the ability to download and then review the code. So if you have an expert at hand, they can also review what the AI has generated and then give it a pass if necessary. Now let's look at the assessment bit of this technology. What are some key benefits of leveraging AWS Transform for your assessments? Like I've been hammering on, it simplifies your migration and planning, and it removes all the guesswork. So, AWS Transform is going to act like your technical hand with the depth of technology in various technological fields. Whereas if you have a number of generalists, they can leverage upon the knowledge AWS Transform has to transform their business operations, for lack of a better word. Another key benefit is that it helps you reduce some costs. It helps you architect your solution for cost savings in the cloud. Now, not just the cloud, but what I see most organizations do is, hey, we have a hardware refresh cycle coming up. We've been using these servers for the last 10 years. They get so hot very often. They go down, and we have to struggle to bring them back up. We now have to migrate, but then we don't have they'll say cloud experts to help with the migration. So they go out there and then look for subject matter experts when it comes to migration to help them achieve that migration to the cloud. Let's say the migration is successful. These subject matter experts don't perform the people function. They have to transform the individuals within your organization to be able to manage the infrastructure that has then been sent to the cloud. And that mostly doesn't happen. So when you do that, you are going to add to the head count of the individuals that you have in your organization, thereby raising costs as well. So by making use of Amazon or AWS Transform, you are able to, let's say, outsource that work to AWS Transform. And let me get it right out of the gate. AWS Transform is free for use. You don't pay for it, but rather you pay for the services that it helps you provision in the cloud. Okay? So in turn, it helps you reduce costs because then you don't have to add to the headcount in your organization. And whilst you are working in tandem with the AI to achieve the modernization and transformation, obviously your people are also learning how the agentic AI thinks. And I'm sure by the time the migration is complete, they would have seen to some extent how things work in AWS Cloud specifically. Another thing is that all these play into each other, so it's improving efficiency as you migrate and modernize the cloud. Let's look at a high-level workflow of how AWS Transform works. So it begins by uploading your inventory to the Amazon or AWS Transform service. When I say inventory, I'm talking about server assessments. Probably you used an external or third-party tooling to run an assessment within your environment, and then it comes up with a number of servers that you have, and that tool is also able to do various workload groupings for you, and that is what enables you to create the waves. You upload that inventory into AWS Transform, then it generates an assessment that you can then leverage upon to reduce costs. If there are things that can be run on free Linux environments to cut Windows licensing costs, it can make that suggestion. Of course, if you want to make use of Windows environments, you can ignore that suggestion. Then, for let's say your stakeholders that are not so technologically inclined, but want to understand what is the cost-benefit analysis of using AWS Cloud versus running our own data center, you can then generate a total cost of ownership to be shared with them, right, with the AWS Transform service. Finally, the agentic function allows you to chat with AWS Transform, and then you can use that chat function in the web UI experience to do like a deep dive and query some of the decisions the AI is giving you, just to understand why it's making such propositions. If all is well, you can approve of it, and then it starts executing the plan for you. We'll see a demo in a bit. So, I don't have demos for all the capabilities of AWS Transform today in the interest of time, but I'll show a brief demo on how AWS Transform works when it comes to VMware modernization to AWS Cloud. Now, you're able to modernize VMware workloads to Amazon EC2, and for those of us that are not familiar with EC2, it stands for Elastic Compute Cloud, and it's basically AWS's own way of saying virtual machines, so that's what they are. It also helps you eliminate third-party licenses fees and then lower costs by, let's say, you don't want to use VMware anymore because of probably Broadcom's new acquisition of VMware and their unfair pricing. So you want to make use of AWS equivalents. It can help you do a one-to-one mapping of such an environment to AWS native tooling that you can leverage upon. You also want to make use of the enhanced security, scalability, and resiliency of the cloud rather than using VMware on-prem. AWS Transform can help you achieve that by modernizing your workloads to the AWS cloud. Finally, you drive innovation with the over 200 plus services that AWS offers. Normally, we split these services up into 5 categories: compute, storage, networking, and some others, right? But there are a lot of services that fit under these categories that you can make use of. Some serverless, some where you manage servers yourself. Now, how does this all fall in place? So, we begin by using the discovery and data injection, where you collect server and network data from the VMware environment. Then next, you perform a wave planning. Like I said, you are able to group your applications and their dependencies together and move them in waves. A wave means that you don't migrate one server and leave one hanging on-prem. They are supposed to work in tandem. So if it's the database tier and the app tier, business logic tier, you are trying to move that particular application together with all its associated dependencies to AWS. So that is a wave. So if you have 6 applications, let's say compute DB tier for all the 6, and let's say it's called application A, B, C, D, you are going to migrate in wave A, B, C, D in that order. Okay. Now, if you are using VMware, of course, you are making use of virtualized networking. Now, the agent is going to suggest AWS equivalents of those networking resources you are making use of in your VMware environment in a one-to-one mapping. Then you proceed to the application of VM migration and deployment with the agentic AI in the loop. Okay, so I already discussed at a high level the flow of how you do this VMware migration, but let me just rehash again. So you connect AWS Transform to your VMware environment. It analyzes the various workloads and dependencies that are within that environment. Then it converts the VMware setup of networking constructs to AWS equivalent constructs. So your virtual subnets and your network would be converted to AWS virtual private networks, AWS subnets, route tables, and so on, without you lifting a finger. Then it generates the intelligent wave plan based on the applications you have and its interdependencies. You validate, because the AI won't execute things on its own. Like I keep saying, the human has to be in the loop to approve of these plans. Then it begins to execute on your behalf. So I have a brief demo showing that. We need sound. So while the team works on the sound bits, how many of us are in the middle of a migration to AWS Cloud? Let me see by hand. So I assume we are all on-prem for now, probably due to the lack of skills to adopt cloud. This service is here to reduce that steep learning curve so that you can adopt cloud easily. So while the technical team works on the audio, maybe I'll play through it and then just describe at a high level what is happening?
To succeed in business, you need the ability to adapt to market changes and foster continuous innovation. A move to AWS empowers you to improve business agility, drive innovation, and reduce costs. But large cloud modernization projects can be time-consuming, labor-intensive, and require specialized skills. Enter Amazon Q Developer, the first generative AI-powered assistant for large-scale modernization of on-premises VMware workloads that uses AI-powered agents to simplify and automate the migration of VMware workloads to Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, or EC2. After logging in, simply chat with the Q Developer agent. Once you start the job, Q Developer creates a job plan. It dynamically updates the job plan, adding new steps based on continuous learning. To provide on-premises server inventory and network data, upload exports from tools such as RV tools, or use AWS Application Discovery Services collectors. Q Developer analyzes the discovered data, classifies it, and provides a summary that includes
That ends today because it understands that whole database. And whatever modern language and framework you aim to modernize, refactor, transform that code into, it can assist you to achieve that. So it's going to automate the entire transformation process, do some analysis, ask what tech stack you want to go with, and then begin working on the refactoring bits. So it can refactor millions of lines of code to Java mostly, and then .NET, just recently adopted. They are focusing on mostly enterprise languages, so it's mostly .NET and Java. Then it's going to generate a wave sequence, your migration plans, for you to send that code that has been modernized onto once the underpinnings of the new refactored code is created on AWS Cloud. So there's a code analysis, there's document generation to go with it to show what was modernized and what changes were done, so that the human in the loop can take a look at it and then query it necessary. There's the code decomposition, refactoring, and so on. Then there's the planning of that migration and deployment sequence. Then you can want to reimagine the application with a different test stack, either .NET or Java. Then you test and make sure that everything is ready and is working as it should. Then you deploy or you finally make that production ready. So that is it at a high level for mainframe modernization. So back in the day, we would have gone through most of the 7 hours just to make sure there's no option. If there's no option, you go with a retire phase, where you want to retire this application and then rewrite it because there's no set scale to modernize and then migrate to AWS. Now, I'll touch on the high level. It's basically the same thing for, it looks like it says for the mainframe modernization. But instead of COBOL, you probably want to modernize .NET applications for the Linux environment. Because mostly, you're probably running your .NET applications in a Windows environment. So, Amazon Q can help you do that, re-architect your applications that are written in .NET to Linux compatible operating systems, and we can see the benefits up to 4 times acceleration of these codes from the Windows to the Linux environment. It can also help reduce your operational costs by up to 40%. Now, of course, if you are using enterprise Linux environments like Red Hat that require license, I think the cost mapping to Windows is slightly cheaper, but it helps reduce your cost. Applications in these environments. So you work compatible in the Linux environment. Analysis, make sure that is going to increase your time to market. Because something that would have taken 2 months to 6 months can be done in, let's say, 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So that's how that works at a large scale. You point AWS Transform, give AWS Transform access to the source code, and then with your approval, it's able to read your code base, does some analysis and then transformation, if necessary, to the Linux environment. You run your unit tests, you validate, make sure everything works as it should, and then you deploy it to the Linux endpoints. So that's how it works at a high level. Once again, connecting it to the repo. You can do this also programmatically. So for our developers that make use of Visual Studio, you can have AWS Transforms extension in there for it to do this for you, your code base. For those that prefer the web experience, that is also available for you to connect AWS Transform to your code base, either on GitHub, and then it does the analysis, transforms it with your approval, of course, and then you deploy it to the Linux endpoint. By doing so, you are cutting a lot of costs, licensing costs from the Windows environment. So here are the two experiences side by side, the web UI and the IDE experience for AWS Transform when it comes to modernizing .NET applications to Linux. Once again, it gives interactive dashboards that you can see at a high level what has been done, what couldn't be done and needs to be expunged, so you rewrite new functions for those. I'll try to end here with a few customer success stories. We have Thomson Reuters, and they were struggling with expensive, time-consuming maintenance of their legacy .NET apps. What did they do? They implemented AWS Transform, which is an agentic tool like I've talked about, and that enabled their modernization. And also, it enabled the parallel processing through both the web interface and then IDE integration. What were the results for them at the end of the day? They modernized 4 times faster to about 1.5 million lines of code per month. That is huge. They also achieved 30% cost savings by moving to Linux from Windows. And at the end of the day, there was also a 70% reduction in technical debt for managing those legacy .NET applications. And the transformation took 2 weeks versus months if it was being done manually by the humans. Another example is Toyota Motors North America. What was their challenge in here? They had key business logic trapped in thousands of legacy programs. They had shrinking mainframe skills pool. Like I keep saying, there are not a lot of experts today that can maintain and handle mainframe code bases. They also had a direct model usage that did not yield better results. And they had also around 40 million plus lines of COBOL code, that is legacy. Once again, they made use of AWS Transform to perform the analysis of their code base, and then it acted as a domain expert to modernize that COBOL language to a modern framework. They made use of Amazon Q business chat for assistance on documentation and storage, so that anyone that takes up the managing of the said code base and infrastructure afterwards would be able to understand what is happening. The results for them, they were able to have 50% faster mainframe modernization with AWS Transform as compared to doing that manually by hand. For application discovery and planning, it was accelerated by up to 75%, and they also reduced application domain extraction efforts from months to hours. That is a 90% increase in acceleration. That, of course, would convert to a faster time to market for them. Also, they were able to decompose such a monolithic setup into business domain logic. So we are talking about microservices by making use of AWS Transform. That is what they were able to achieve. So, before I move on to the next segment, I'll end here. This is just a high level to see the application of generative AI in migration. Since this event is an AI-themed event, we wanted to show that implementing generative AI in your migration and modernization attempts is possible with AWS Transform. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Enoch. And once again, we appreciate everyone for your time so far with us. So without taking too much of our time, we'll be coming back for the business resilience in the cloud age after the tea break. So we're going to be having coffee break and networking break. So do well to talk to your neighbor, meet people, interact, because that's the most important reason, like one reason why we're also here. So you can take numbers, exchange numbers, talk about business pretty much. So we can just go behind the hall and we can have our coffee. Then it's just going to run for 15 minutes. Then we're expected to come back and continue the program. Thank you, everyone. You can also take pictures, I forgot. Very important.
I've been with DigiTank for a while now, and I must say a team of professionals with all sort of experience. And over the years, we've worked together. We've been able to solve a lot of things and able to do a lot of technology improvement. What I must say as well is that DigiTank is a team that are always ready to help, to support, and they even go the extra mile to ask further questions in case there are any challenges you are facing. Any day, anytime you call on them, they are able to get the issues resolved. Even if they're not able to resolve it the next day, they make sure they get in contact and get the issues resolved. So they are a team that are very reliable. Any day, anytime, you can just rest on them, and they are just a call away, and you trust that your issues will be sorted. So for me, I've dealt with them over the years, and I can attest to their capabilities and performance, and they are solid, and we are always happy to be with them. Thank you. I don't know what I was speaking fast now.
Telisol as a digital architect. We have had a few engagements with DigiTank, and I can tell you that DigiTank have industry experts that can assist you in every cloud migration that you want to do. They are patient, they are very thorough in everything that they do with regards to your engagement in your cloud migration process, and I can just say they're just ready to assist you in any way that you want. Yeah, thank you.
So, okay. My name is Nathaniel Ashegbo, co-founder and CEO for Courses Ghana Limited. So we are basically a software engineering company. We've been in the system for the past 15 years, and we basically host most of our applications on the AWS infrastructure. Now we basically run applications we develop for our customers by ourselves. So we had the opportunity to go into partnership with Digitank to enable us scale and analyze our cost in terms of our cloud usage. So this collaboration has actually made us release all the risk and burdens that we usually think about and put that on Digitank. And we focus mainly on the software development aspect for our customers. So we are constantly engaging with Digitank to ensure that we are optimizing our cost, ensuring that we are using the right tools on the AWS platform, and utilizing the infrastructure well to ensure we give our customers the best services that we have to offer. Thank you very much.
Resilience in the cloud age. So I'll be inviting Enoch France to continue with the session. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for him.
Thank you, Sandra, once again. And thank you, our distinguished guests, for staying with us. Most of us were famished. I think by now you've got something in there to accommodate what is coming next. So while we wait for the presentation to come up for the next segment, I want to see by hands how many of us today are doing disaster recovery on the cloud. You can show by hands. Okay. So none of us today is making use of the cloud for disaster recovery, which is a nice segue to the next topic of discussion, where I'll touch on how you can maximize the resilience of your application in the cloud by making use of AWS Cloud. I believe most of us by now are doing some DR at least, but it's mostly on premises. Any hands? Great. I see a few hands. That's a good number. So we see that preparing for disasters is a very essential undertaking that most organizations need to carry out to stay relevant in the likely event of a disaster. It could be a force majeure, like an earthquake, a flood, or something similar, like fire. Sometimes it could even be human error. So how do you guard against the unpredictable and sometimes inevitable? Everything breaks. Everything breaks all the time. I've forgotten the exact phrase, but the CTO of Amazon Web Services, Werner Vogel, quotes that a lot, that everything breaks all the time. So you have to safeguard your resources and yourself and brace for the unpredictable. So that is what we are looking at discussing today. Okay. Let me make it a bit more interactive while we wait for the slides to come up. I saw a few hands to the right side. If you don't mind sharing with us what solutions you use in your environment for DR, just a high level.
For currently, no, but I used Symantec as a backup just for my former place that I was working. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that response. I think I saw another hand up somewhere here. You mind sharing with the house?
Okay, so I use Ease as tool. Okay, it's a backup tool. I use it in conjunction with an external hard drive, and I also do Google Cloud backup. Yes, so these are the two DL recovery backups that I do.
Thank you very much for that insight as well. So I see that we have the majority of us making use of various tools, third-party tools to safeguard our infrastructure in the cloud. We have some distinguished gentlemen making use of Symantec solutions, and others a combination of tools from other third parties like EASAS for code backup and restore, I think. You make an image of the machine weekly, daily, something of that nature, and then you test these images to make sure that they are viable in the unlikely event of a disaster. Okay, so that is what we seek to discuss today, moving away from on-prem and making use of the cloud as a disaster recovery site. Okay, so I'm going to touch on a few things. First, some numbers. Once again, we are looking at the business impact of resilience. So why the need for your resources or your IT infrastructure to be resilient against the inevitable? Now, it's predicted that the global community platform lost around 8.2 million in revenue due to outages. Another is that a leading US airline lost around 150 million in profits due to an outage. This is coming from Forbes. On the average, application downtime costs around $500,000 to $1 million per year. And this is amongst all the surveyed Fortune 1000 companies. This report is coming from IDC, and you can look that up. Up to 76% of companies have had outages before. Even as we speak, there are companies out there that are facing a myriad of problems when it comes to uptime. So we realize that having a DR plan is very important to stay relevant. Now, 12 to 20% increase in profit margins have been gained by making use of key digital resilience levers. Let's talk about the old way. The old way is still relevant among some of us today, where what we do is we have production workloads in our on-prem data center. So we probably look for a co-location center and then have a like-to-like environment, just as we have on premises in that co-location center. Now, because the costs are variable, I've just represented them by dollar signs, but we can see that you spend equal amount of costs in running your production site versus your DR site. That is the old way. Moving on, the new way that most organizations are adopting today is by making use of cloud-based disaster recovery setups, where you have your fully fledged environment on premises, but then you can make use of the cloud or AWS specifically as a DR site in the event of a failure at a low cost. So you have the critical parts of your application running in real time, continually collecting data from your on-premises environment, and as and when disaster strikes, you can't fail over, and then upscale the environment in the cloud to accommodate the load that your production site usually takes. A few facts here as well from IDC. They predict that by 2025, about 55% of organizations would have migrated their data protection systems to a cloud-centric model. Now, why use cloud for DR? If you look to the left, making use of on-prem disaster recovery infra means that there's a huge upfront cost, that CapEx investment I showed you earlier, where you have to create a like-for-like environment in your secondary site, just like you have in your production site. Now, it's difficult to manage, expensive to scale, expensive to maintain, because the number of man-hours that are required to run your primary site is the same for the DR site, especially if you're considering uptime. For the cloud-based approach on the right, you can see that you can only pay for provision resources when you need them. It also has a lower overall headcount in terms of managing. You are quickly able to add and remove servers. So if you decommission something on-prem, that can be reflected in the cloud environment as well in an automated fashion. And then there's a simple onboarding experience for even setting up that DR environment in the cloud. Now, when should you consider moving your DR to the cloud? Let's look at a few benefits pre-migration. So pre-migration, you're able to reduce your disaster recovery costs and improve your RTOs and RPOs with AWS as your DR site. You can also easily test your production workloads and speed up your familiarity with AWS. Because of the simplified onboarding experience, you don't even need to have any prior knowledge of AWS. You can just make use of the service I'll be talking about in a few minutes from now, just to onboard your DR site on AWS and learn as you go. Now, post-migration, you have increased resilience of your migrated applications with cross-region or cross-AZ DR if you're already on the cloud. You're also able to prepare your environment quickly to recover from unexpected disruptions, using things like infrastructure as code to speed up the spinning up of infrastructure on AWS. You're also able to automate your disaster recovery setup via a simplified UI web experience on the cloud as well. I'll show you how that works in a few. Now, how do you determine your recovery objectives, your RPOs and RTOs? So, RPO stands for Recovery Point Objective, and it's basically talking about how much data you can afford to lose. Let me simplify that a bit. So let's say the time is now 12:40, and you have a disaster strike around 12:40. But then the last backup was taken around 12:35. That means that if disaster struck around 12:40, you would have lost some data from 12:40 up until the point where the disaster strike. So that is that data loss gap. right? So let's say 12:35, 12:40, you have that 5-minute window of new data that you had backed up already before disaster struck. Now that is your RPO. Now RTO, that has got to do with how fast you can recover from that data loss or that downtime. So if you're running a disaster recovery site on premises, it means that if you are going with a code backup and restore method, and your code backups are carried out, let's say, every 24 hours, your RPO is 24 hours. It's every 24-hour window, you have data for that time. And if that 24-hour window of backup that you have will take you 2 hours to spin up, to have data that is viable within the last 24 hours of your backup, that is your RTO, right? That is the recovery time objective of 2 hours just to go for your backup from that tape drive, spin it up on the server, make sure that your applications are up and running. That's your RTO. Now, let's look at the resilience options. So to the far left, most of us have mentioned over here that they are making use of the traditional backup and restore method. To the far left side, we can see that it has RPOs of hours and RTOs of hours as well, but it gives you the cheapest of costs because you don't have any live environments. Once you take your backup, you probably take it off-site on your tape drive to a fireproof safe somewhere and store it until disaster strikes before you go back in there, recover that data to restore. So that is the cheapest. There's also the pilot light, where it allows you to stand up, let's say, the core infrastructure on cheaper hardware, right? So probably your database tier is in direct synchronization with another database offsite somewhere, just the database, not the other dependencies that it needs. That can give you RPOs of minutes because your database tier is probably eventually consistent with what you have on premises because it's synchronizing with an offsite database server somewhere. And your RTO can be hours because although you have the data, you now have to spin up the supporting application that can read from that data for you to serve your customers. So less data loss, high time to recovery for your customers to be able to access your application. But once they access your application, the likelihood of you losing a lot of data is low here. But you realize that the cost is $2 more. It's getting expensive. Then there's the warm standby, where you have the app tier and probably the DB tier running in concert, but they are all on scaled down infrastructure. So the pilot line, maybe you had a DB tier. For warm standby, you have the app tier, database tier, and other dependencies running on cheaper hardware. Now we realize that the RPO is minutes, RTO is minutes, but the cost is a bit more than the last tier. But then you suffer a much lower data loss than the previous year, and you're able to recover your resources faster and begin serving your customers. Then finally, there's the active-active. Active-active means for most people, or most organizations, that want high availability. It means you are provisioning your primary site to look just the same as your secondary site. So the same CapEx that you would invest for your production site would be the same for your secondary site for DR as well. And this provides you RTOs in real time, RPOs of seconds. It means that if something happens to your primary sites, your end users may not even notice any downtime. It's just going to do a switch over to your primary site. This is actually very great, but the cost here is very steep. And there's also the issue of ransomware attacks. It means, even not just ransomware attacks, it could be user error. It means if someone does something on premises in your primary sites, that same error is going to be replicated inadvertently to your secondary site. If there's a ransomware attack on premises in your primary site, inadvertently it's going to spread to your secondary site as well. So you need to take that into consideration. How do you safeguard against all that? So the next slide, we'll see a service that AWS is proposing, and that is the AWS Elastic Disaster Recovery Service. And it combines the best of all the worlds for you to have the best disaster recovery setup ever in the cloud. So with AWS Elastic Disaster Recovery Service, you have the costs of the Pilot Lite application because it's actively or continually replicating your infrastructure block by block in real time to your secondary site. Then you also benefit from the warm standby in the sense that you have a downscaled infra setup, just reminiscent of the one you have in your primary site, also running. Then it gives you an RPO of seconds, because as soon as disaster strikes, you can go into the web console, toggle a button, and then it spins up a similar infrastructure like you have on premises, and then you begin serving traffic from there. Now, what are some key benefits to using disaster recovery, AWS Elastic Disaster Recovery? It gives you faster recovery times. It also allows you to conduct easy testing. We call these drills. Now, these drills are non-disruptive. They don't affect your primary site. They allow you to carry these drills out in the AWS cloud independent of your primary site. So it doesn't cause any lags in your primary site. It doesn't interfere with how data flows there. It also gives you lower costs, like I mentioned earlier. And since I mentioned that sometimes the active-active setup is not, let's say, protected against ransomware, with this setup, you are able to have ransomware recovery because it gives you what we call points in times, images that you can go and choose from. So if you do, your security team carries out the analysis and they are able to identify the point in time where disaster strike with regards to ransomware, you can restore the unaffected images before the ransomware struck and put your remediations in place. It also gives you data protection with the faster recovery point objectives. Facing a technical issue. Okay. Now, let me just gloss over how this is set up. So this is set up over the AWS console. You go in there, you connect that to your primary environment through the use of agents. These agents that you install on the servers that you want to protect will then replicate your data block by block in real time to the AWS cloud. And then you are able to carry out test and recovery drills. When you carry out these test and recovery drills, from there you are able to determine your RTO, right? Then you operate this service. Once disaster strikes on premises, you fail over to AWS. If it's a server that went down on premises, once that server, a new server is procured, you can do what we call the failback, where you pull down the image that was being run on AWS and restore that on your new procured server, and then you decommission the resources on AWS. Now, I'll talk about a few setups of this service at a high level. You're able to do on-premises to AWS recovery. You're also able to do other clouds to AWS DR as well. Now, for those of us who are already on AWS, you can make use of a region to another region DR strategy. If you want to keep your operations in a smaller scale, smaller footprint, you can do the AWS availability zone, so availability zone setup. I'll talk through this at a high level. I'll talk to the infrastructure at a high level. So on the far left, we have our database or our data center on the far left. And for this setup, let's just keep it simple. We have 2 servers that are running in your on-prem environment. What we do in there is that we go in and install the Elastic Disaster Recovery agents on those servers. We can see a total of 5 disks attached on the far left. Now, what AWS does is that once the AWS agent targets are registered with the AWS Elastic Disaster Recovery service, it replicates your data to what we call the staging area in the middle, and all this traffic that is being passed to AWS is encrypted in transit. So you are rest assured no third party can intercept that data and make proper use of it, because everything will be garbled. In the staging area, there's low-cost EBS volumes that are housing this data that is being replicated to AWS. In that same staging area, you are able to carry out your drills. So you carry out your non-disruptive drills. They don't affect your primary environment. That is your data center. You are able to carry out your drills, see maybe quarterly drills in every year to see if your data is viable for recovery in the unlikely event that disaster strikes. And let's say disaster strikes. When you carry out a drill and everything checks out, you now move those drill resources to the recovery subnet in AWS. Obviously, you probably have to go to your, if it's an application, you probably have to go to your DNS provider, change a couple of records, probably an A record, CNAME record, and map it to the new resources that are in your recovery subnet so that you can continue serving your customers from there. Now, as and when you resolve the issue on premises, after you've done the failover means you are cutting over from your on-prem environment to AWS. When you've resolved the issue in your on-prem environment, either you replace the server, you can now do what we call the failback. So you pick the data that was recovered on AWS, either as an ISO, or you install the AWS DRS failback agent on your bare metal server that you've just replaced. And it's going to download the new changes that are on AWS. It looks at your server, downloads the prerequisite drivers that are needed on-prem for it to operate, and then it stands that up for you. So, in the interest of time, there's another service called Backup and Restore, but I'll end here so that we can have the other sessions. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Enoch. And thank you, everyone, for your patience so far. So before I call in the next speaker, I would like for us to have like a 5-minute drill. And it's just going to be very simple. So the question is, how many of us are currently hosting our infrastructure on premises? Please, a show of hand would do, please. All right, thank you. So how many of us are currently hosting our infrastructure in cloud? Okay, thank you very much. So for those of us that are still on premise and people in cloud, can we just have like a few minutes talk on why we are still looking at staying on-prem? Are we scared of something, or is there something we're looking at that we're not yet seeing in cloud that is keeping us on premise? So I believe that's an answer that the next presenter will take on when he steps on. So right about now, I'll be calling in Bowale Oyenuga to take us through the security and compliance in the cloud era. So please give it up for him while he comes up stage. And I saw everyone that raised their hands, so sorry, I'll still come to you with the mic so you can give answers to the questions I asked. Please, let's keep clapping for him while he comes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I want to assume that we are enjoying the event so far. A lot of knowledge has been disseminated around cloud services adoption and all that. And like you mentioned, I would like to know how many of us are already in the cloud, like you're hosting your services or infrastructure in the cloud. And for most of us that have not yet maybe migrated into to the cloud space, would like to actually understand why you haven't done that. Are there things you're actually looking at, maybe considering, so that we can, because this presentation is basically the security aspect of cloud adoption, most especially the multi-cloud adoption, public cloud, AWS, Azure, and all that. And those are the things we want to speak to, and I can see that like 90 or 95% of us have not yet started adopting cloud. I don't know if anybody wants to speak on why they've not yet considered migrating to cloud yet, or what are things you're looking at, so just for us to have a bit of understanding. Anybody that wants to speak about that?
Yeah, so I was telling Madam Sandra that our issue is we are a government agency.
Okay, government
so it's more
agency.
of policy of having infrastructure on-prem. And even if we are looking at cloud, we have to look at where the policy direction of the government is taking you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's a valid government course of regulations and compliance. Yes, I understand that. Any other sector in the house, if you want to talk about the considerations, just to have a better context on around the security in cloud adoption. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Hello. Right. So I'm a bit in the cloud and a bit in the on-prem.
Okay.
We have most of the core businesses, we put it on cloud, and a few applications that are in-house, right? But I think over time, we realize that the cloud is more in terms of real-time processing, in terms of challenges.
Okay.
What we do for the backup is to backup database to AWS, like they say, but just that we have not automated the real-time kind of disaster recovery stuff, right?
Okay.
So far that's what we run.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for that.
Yeah, the reason why we are still on-prem is because we are still considering which of the three to go for. That is AWS, GCP, or Azure. So that's the reason why we are still on-prem. We are looking at the finances involved and all of those necessary things. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. One more. Okay. Last person, please, so that I can start the presentation. Thank you for those responses.
Okay. So we are still on-prem basically because of internet solution in Ghana. It's now that we have Starlink here in Ghana, we are trying to look into exploring those options. But for now, we can still remain being on-prem because of our internet.
Okay. Thank you. Those are valid reasons. So far, so good. We've been talking about. Please, I need the pointer or something for presentation. So far, so good. We've been talking about cloud adoption, and the previous speakers have spoken well about how easy to navigate around cloud, most especially the AWS services, and how to be able to ensure that you have a sustainable services and businesses operating in the cloud. But this aspect of this presentation talks about, the security in the cloud. All service provider, all cloud service provider, ensures that you have 99.9% security when it comes to, the cloud provisioning and cloud services, most especially for their own infrastructure. There's what is called shared responsibility, in the cloud aspect, which means that there's a part of security that, as a customer, you are solely responsible for. And there's a part of security that, as a cloud service provider, they are solely responsible for. And we have several models in the cloud: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, all other as a service, that I can't remember now. And those models actually requires a level of security that is required from the customer, most especially things that has to do with your data and applications in the cloud. And we'll be talking about security and compliance in the cloud era. And by the way, my name is Bowale Oyenuga, and I'm a system engineer for Fortinet, a global leading cybersecurity that deals with security of anything cloud, networking, solution fabric, and all endpoints. Please, I need this. Thank you. So we'll talk about security and compliance in the cloud era, and we'll look at FortiSynap, which is the cloud native application protection in the cloud. When we've seen a lot of adoptions from different organizations worldwide of cloud adoption, and we have various organizations have various reasons why they are migrating to the cloud. Most especially from studies, we see that 56% of organizations migrated to the cloud because of better scalability and performance, which means that they can easily scale with cloud services. So let's say, for instance, you're dealing with a user base of, let's say, 20,000 users, and you have applications and services that can, operate at that level at that moment. You can easily scale your business and applications if you now begin to, operate with having more than 20,000 users, at a stretch. So businesses find it very easy to scale in, scale out, with cloud applications and services, which really also ensures that there is business continuity and there's no throttleness with their business and applications in the cloud. We have 46% of organizations that also, migrated to the cloud because they see it as a faster mode of deploying their services. They can quickly deploy service and quickly become operational, in the cloud, as opposed to having an on-prem environment where you need to have all the total cost of ownership of the services, infrastructure, and all that. With cloud adoption, you can quickly scale, you can quickly deploy, you can quickly go online, and move into production and render service to your customers. Then we see 41% as moved to the cloud because of operational efficiency. Most of the burden that has to do with managing servers, patching them, and all that now relies on the service provider than the customer. And a lot of these are great benefits of the cloud. And from Gartner's report, we see that 24%, there will be 24% increase in year-on-year growth in cloud adoption by 2028, which means that there will be simplicity. A lot of organizations will move into the cloud for better production and scalability of their businesses. So the cloud adoption also comes with its own challenges, and we've seen that from the reports there are some challenges that also relate to using cloud services. And one of these is the lack of confidence in ability to detect and respond to threats across all cloud environments in real time. The cloud is very porous if a business or organization doesn't know how to secure it well, because the approach to securing cloud infrastructure is quite different from the approach you use when it comes to on-prem, infrastructure. And we've seen that from the report, 64% of organizations and enterprises, states that they lack confidence in the ability to quickly detect and respond, to threats across all their platform. Then we have loss of visibility and control, because we have a wide range of services in the cloud. To deploy an application in the cloud, it requires the interconnection of different services and all that. And if care is not taken, there will be a lot of complexity when cloud architecture is not well defined well for a particular organization or businesses, which leaves this 55% as loss of visibility and control of the cloud infrastructure. Then one of the top challenges is lack of adequate human resources and skills to be able to deploy and manage the security in the cloud. There has been a lot of skill shortage around managing cloud services and also securing them adequately. And all these are, part of the challenges that most organizations face. And one of the things that as Fortinet which is a global security vendor globally, we are also trying to address to ensure there will be a smooth implementation of cloud services and migration of users even securely without having to worry about anything. So also looking at organizations that are also not just having one cloud operational, they are also into interconnecting their services across multiple cloud, which we call the multi-cloud or multi-platform environment. So the adoption of public clouds like in conjunction with AWS and GCP or Azure, for resiliency and for availability of services. There's also be challenges in having a very great security approach and security system for securing that environment. We'll see that the utilization of multi-clouds of different services also amplifies security risk, and from operational complexity, misconfigurations, and also loss of visibility. And we've seen that silo security tools are no longer an optional for the cloud security sake. For most of the customers that we have adopting cloud services and operation, one of the things we see is that they can quickly deploy their applications, and as they deploy applications to production, the least thing that they put in mind is the security. They want to ensure that they secure, as they are deploying their applications into the cloud, they're also backing it up with security. And challenges also comes up when they try to also leverage multiple cloud service provider into the system in order to ensure that there is remediation and there is availability of those services. So protecting cloud application actually requires holistic approach. The way we would approach security on-prem is different from the approach we would have into cloud security. Why? Because in cloud security, the perimeter is no longer the network in the cloud. The new perimeter in the cloud is identity. And the access that we give those identities. We've seen that one of the most common attacks we've seen has to do with the compromise of credentials of administrators in the cloud, and this has led to one of the most issues that most people face when they start to migrate into cloud. Credentials compromise that leads to a lot of risk and all that. And to come in to be able to approach cloud security, a holistic approach is very required, and one of the approach has to do with having a unified platform. Fortinet approach security in the cloud by converging different solutions into one platform. This ensures that there's enough visibility, there's enough control, and there's enough integrated services to ensure the safety and the approach of migrating smoothly into the cloud. And we can see that everything from coding to deploying and running application across hybrid and multi-cloud is very important to company, because one of the things we've seen is that organizations quickly want to, they want to deploy their applications, and they also want to, securely do that, from coding the application to running the application, deploying it, and making it productional for their customers. And one of the things we've seen is that in order to ensure these are safe, we need to ensure that there is an approach which is a unified platform approach, the convergence of security tools and services, and also not to be able to make sure that we are not using siloed products to protect all these applications. So from the network security aspect of the cloud to the application security and to the cloud native application protection, all of these are working together to ensure there is a protection of both the application itself, the services, and also the data in the cloud. So when you look at Fortinet approach security in the cloud with a comprehensive integrated core to cloud security, we also offer 360-degree cloud defense in-depth protection against all threats and risk vectors. So, for instance, like most of us that are currently on-prem would know that for us to be able to protect our network security, most especially in the upper, we introduce what we know as next generation firewall. How many of us have like FortiGate devices on our on-prem? Like you have FortiGate protecting us on our on-prem. So migrating to the cloud as well would also offer you to have something like that in your cloud network, most especially when you are dealing with infrastructure as a service. You want to ensure your network in the cloud is protected. We call it a VPC. Your virtual private network in the cloud is protected, and you can only do that by introducing a network security appliance. And FortiGate device is a network appliance, is a next generation firewall that can be deployed in the form of a virtual machine in the cloud for the protection of security, in order to enforce consistent policies, just the way you have it on your on-prem environment. So with this, you can easily achieve network visibility in your cloud environment and also enforce consistent policies across your private, public, and also telco clouds. Then we also offer what is known as FortiApp Sec, which is a conglomerate of and a convergence of different application suites in itself. So in FortiAppSec, you have what's known as web application, web API security tool services, and we have what's called web application firewall. That's protecting your applications from top 10 OAPs of top vulnerabilities like SQL injection, all this cross-site scripting, and all those top 10 tiers vulnerabilities in the cloud. Then we have threat analytics, DAST, and we have global load balancer. So these applications and security tools are unified from Fortinet to be able to ensure you have a very holistic and a unified approach to protecting your applications and data in the cloud. Then the next one is the cloud native application protection, which we are going to talk about in full length, when we continue this slide, which is the Lacework FortiSynapse tool. The FortiSynapse tool, which is the Lacework solution, is able to secure everything from code, to cloud faster with unparalleled context and visibility with a single unified platform. So the FortiSynapse here unified different various services and security services into one platform for the protection of your workloads, for the protection of your application in the cloud. So for instance, we have CSPM, which is the Cloud Security Posture Management, integrated with Kubernetes, security posture management, cloud workload protection, the CIM, and infrastructure as a cloud, and code security. For organizations that are currently adopting cloud, one of the major issues you begin to see is that you have DevOps engineers that just they write codes, and as they write codes, they try to deploy it into the production and all that. What FortiSynapse does is that from the moment your DevOps engineer starts to write the codes, you want to be able to ensure that you are able to able to secure those applications from the very beginning of the stage of coding to the stage of deploying it, to the stage of running it, to the stage at which is now in the production network to be consumed. So we call it the software development lifecycle. So from the very start, you're already infusing security, like finding vulnerabilities in the code, finding misconfigurations from the code that can be exploited. These services are unified in one platform to provide that level of visibility, most especially to misconfigured services, to misconfigured services, to identities, misconfigured identities, and all that. And only FortiSynapse has the ability to bring together all these security services into one platform to give a better visibility for all the services in the cloud, and to ensure that you're able to mitigate threats in time. You're able to prioritize these threats and risk. And because one of the challenges we've seen in cloud adoption is that we have various and numerous number of signals and alerts coming in for the SOC team, and the ability to be able to prioritize threats and risk is very important, because to be able to attend to thousands of signals and alerts is very alarming. But with this FortiSynapse tool, you can be able to make the major impact in ensuring that the priority of each alert and each signals gotten from different services are well correlated and contextualized, and you can be able to attend to them seamlessly. So looking at the cloud, one of the things that we've seen is that the cloud system or the cloud platform has actually broken the cybersecurity status quo. We've seen that one of the things we've also identified is that 50% of cloud identities are super admins, and the cloud workloads outnumbers human users from 10 to 1. So you would see, if you are online very well, you see that the major factor that contributes to cloud risk and threats is misconfiguration of services. Misconfigured services lead to cyber breaches, cyber attacks, and all that. And without enough and comprehensive visibility into your cloud workloads and system, you might not be able to figure out what has been misconfigured. Apart from having visibility into the services that are misconfigured, you also want to have visibility into what those misconfigured services are also communicating to. If they are communicating to command and control server, if they are communicating to bad actors, malicious domains, and all that. All these visibilities are what are encompassed in utilizing a cloud native workload protection. Then, because there's always consistent evolution around cloud services and adoption, we have new vulnerabilities. There's a studies that says that almost every 18 minutes there's always new vulnerabilities in the cloud environment, because there's always digital accelerations in the cloud, And as this digital accelerations begins to take place and occur, there are new risks and new vulnerabilities being found in the cloud system. And to be able to quickly discover that, you need a tool that will be able to evaluate your environment and give you those level of visibility and the way to also mitigate them. Then you can see ransomware will also cost around $265 billion annually by 2013. And we have new attacks every 2 seconds, most especially in the cloud environment. Then 68% of data breaches involve stolen credentials and social engineering. We've seen a lot of breach that has to do with identity, because mostly the new perimeter in the cloud is identity, and also the permission that are associated to them. From the studies, we've seen that from here you see 50% of cloud identities are super admins. When administrators are assigning roles and permissions to identities in the clouds, they tend to give those services super admin services, which when bad actors get hold of, they use that to breach the data and also compromise their systems. And without a proper tool to be able to evaluate your cloud security posture, to be able to evaluate and assess your cloud access and all that, you won't have enough visibility to see into what you have in the cloud and how to mitigate all those threats. So, like I mentioned earlier, a simple cloud deployment is very simple. If you go to AWS cloud platforms now, you see more than 200 cloud services which are readily available for you to utilize to develop your applications and host some of your services. And we also have hundreds of services, sensitive actions are available, unlimited public IP space in the cloud, and also services are available to non-experts and developers. DevOps engineer find it very easy to quickly spin up services and develop applications, because with cloud services, it makes deployment of applications very simple by following the CI/CD pipeline and making it productional. But the very key thing in ensuring that applications are not just deployed into production is that from the very start of the writing of those code, from the very first line of code, security must be infused into those applications, and that's what the latest work for Synapse is all about. Is a unified platform that ensures the enhancement of applications in the cloud from code to cloud security. So there are three questions or three tasks that most security teams have in mind when organizations tend to deploy their applications into the cloud, most especially when they start with coding those applications and running them and deploying them. One of the things they want to do is to minimize attack surface. And with this, they want to be able to gain comprehensive visibility and also proactively reduce vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities are weaknesses and loopholes that can be found in applications, and they are not just necessarily available when the applications are already in production. They can also be found at the very stage of the coding of those applications, and that's why the staging of those applications is very important in gaining comprehensive visibility when the DevOps engineer starts coding those applications, to be able to find out loopholes and vulnerabilities in order to minimize the attack surface. And also, you want to be able to continuously monitor the risk that are associated to the deployment of those applications, which has to do with continuously assessing those virtual machines, most especially if there are infrastructures backing those applications in the cloud, if they are not software as a service applications. You also want to be able to continuously monitor the containers and Kubernetes workloads, to be able to address those risks actively before they are being exploited by the bad actors. Then the third task that are associated to security teams managing cloud environment or applications or platforms is to reduce the threat impact of this risk, by quickly detecting and also investigating, and also to be able to quickly respond to those unusual behaviors of those threat actors. And this is the reason why FortiSnap has been developed, to be able to reduce the time at which security teams tend to respond to alerts and associate all those alerts into prioritization of what needs to be attended to before they are being exploited. So the undeniable reality is that time is cloud security's first adversary, because as a SOC engineer, if there's any SOC engineer, you can attest to the fact that there are millions or billions of alerts coming in, most especially when you're using security tools to mitigate threats and all that. In the advent of mitigating those threats, you find it very stressful to quickly correlate most logs, most alerts, and be able to pinpoint that there is actually a threat or active threat going on. And from studies, it takes like 65 days average meter for a critical vulnerability to be discovered in an active environment. And you see that it takes almost 241 days, average time to be able to detect and contain a breach. And it takes 5 hours, to be able to exfiltrate data by those actors. And this is where FortiSnap comes in, because with FortiSnap, you can quickly, evaluate your environment. We set a baseline by studying the environment of your cloud workloads, and be able to know when there is a deviation from a particular activity and be able to mitigate that threat. Because the operationalization of cloud security is very important, and one of the key questions you want to ask when you actually migrate into the cloud and start using cloud services and infrastructure is that how would you quickly mitigate your most impactful risk? So amongst all the alerts or signals you've gotten from different integrations of services into your cloud environment, and you've gotten so many alerts, how do you quickly mitigate or quickly remediate a risk? And how do we quickly identify the most impactful one? So let's take a CSPM tool, for example. CSPM is a cloud security posture management. And one of the things it does is to be able to identify misconfigured services in the cloud, which is very important, and that's all it does. But if it's identifying misconfigured service, how would you know that that misconfigured service is actually communicating with bad actors? How would you know that that thing is that misconfigured service is relating with a command and control server? Are you getting me? So a unified platform with those tools, which FortiSnap has, gives a contextualized visualization and comprehensive visibility, not just to identify misconfigured service, but also to draw for you attack vectors of what is related with those misconfigured service, so that you can mitigate threats and make it impactful. So as risk and alert are being associated, the FortiSnap is able to give those incidents the risk score based on priority and high incident rate. Then most of the question you want to ask is that who are misconfigured services talking to? What are humans and machine assessing? How are vulnerable packages behaving, most especially in your environment? How many vulnerabilities, or which of the vulnerability is most likely to be exploited based on the evaluation done within the system? Then to be able to reduce meter for for your most dangerous threats, some of the questions you also want to ask is that, why has this application behavior changed? We use behavioral analysis to measure and to analyze the behavior of your applications by setting baseline for their initial behavior to detecting the anomalies that has occurred. Maybe, for instance, while a virtual machine is working, maybe you forgot to shut it down, and the virtual machine just started responding to external IP address or domain, after work hour. Those are the things that you want to be able to evaluate and be able to quickly, mitigate on the spot before, it corrupts the whole infrastructure. Then, one of the things you also want to know is how big is the potential impact. Is that you also want to know if there's any new login or any misbehavior, any strange or processes within those services that you've already deployed in the application. Then another thing is, why is there a new privilege escalation that you've not maybe assigned to any admins or any users within the environment? So what we've seen in time past is that organizations approach security, most especially in the cloud, in a siloed way, meaning that, okay, there's a need for an application to be developed, spin up and used. So the DevOps engineer just assign those work and they develop an application. The security teams just get a solution to be able to manage and secure that application. Maybe in the nearest future, maybe 6 months later, there's a need for another application. They get another application, develop it and code it and put it into production. They get another security solution to develop. So by that way, they are using siloed approach to manage the whole application protection within the cloud, which in advent turn out to create complexity in the cloud, because when you use siloed approach, there is a gap that it creates, which actually limits the level of visibility that the security team needs to have. You understand? And you begin to see that a lot of things passes by and you are not aware about it because you don't have full visibility. You can only defend what you see, like we used to say. So the first key thing in the cloud is visibility, comprehensive visibility. And this is one of the things that FortiSynapse also offers. So we see that it's also very difficult and time-consuming to be able to normalize data for prioritization from different siloed tools within the cloud system. Then, usage of So with the usage of the FortiSynapse, all this, because the FortiSynapse is a unified platform that brings all the security tools in one place in terms of convergence, you have enough visibility to contextualize the risk, the threat, and to be able to also have an attack vector path to be able to also mitigate those attacks from misconfigurations of services to vulnerabilities discovered from the stage of coding to deployment into production stage, from managing the secrets, most especially when DevOps engineers are integrating their credentials into the application for access and all that, to be able to discover those secrets are not being exposed to the attackers, to entitlement within the cloud platform. All this has to be in the unified platform, secured in a way that it can be devoid of complexity, from the cloud perspective. So if you look at the effective cloud native security that requires a unified approach, FortiSynapse Lacework is a single platform that understands your environment from code to cloud. And one of the things we do is that we ingest data, from your cloud services, and it's not just for a single platform. is actually for multi-cloud. You can use the integration for multi-cloud environment. If you're an organization that is not just leveraging on AWS, maybe you have a multi-cloud environment, you're utilizing both AWS, Azure, and GCP. The FortiSnap can integrate into your cloud account, your cloud services, ingest data from all these cloud services, and be able to automatically correlate those data by setting baseline, that is normal behavior, for your environment, and also be able to identify deviations and anomalies, and be able to give a level of response and deviations from that. Then in resolving it, you can have attack path vectors can be created in terms of visualization. Then also identify excessive permission that has been associated and given to certain credentials and users. Then you can be able to also identify active vulnerabilities, active vulnerabilities that are exploitable by having a page that prioritize all those events and all that. So in order to create amazing customer outcomes, we see that Blisswork FortiSnap has actually reduced the number of days, number of alerts that users get by contextualizing all those alerts and prioritizing which one is of most importance for the security team to look out for, so that they can be more impactful in mitigating risk and threats in that environment. So you have a lot of security tools within your environment or within your platform that are consolidated and converged, and that can be of more effective to you, most especially in mitigating all this risk and vulnerabilities. Then you can also have faster investigation of incidents and alerts, because the unified products within the system works hand in hand. They are integrated to give visibility and also control of the environment. Then if you look at this, the FortiSnap Listwork unified platforms for securing code to cloud has like 3 major model and modules. The first module has to do with the code security module, and you can see the code security module has in itself the software composite analysis, the static application security testing engine, and also the infrastructure as a code to be able to scan the code and APIs that are integrated into the cloud, most especially in the development phase, and also to address vulnerabilities, malwares, and misconfiguration at the development stage, most especially when the DevOps team starts coding and developing the application, and also to prevent deployment of non-compliant applications in evaluating those code for secure coding. Then at the deployment phase of configuration, we have the cloud infrastructure entitlement management, which is the CIEM. Then we have the CSPM, which is the cloud security posture management tool, and the vulnerability assessment. This phase allows to be able to assess the cloud infrastructure configuration, to fish out and evaluate identities and permissions that are associated into that has been integrated into the code of the application, and to be able to prioritize risks that that is associated to them. Then you'll be able to also have like an attack path analysis, most especially some of the services that are associated to maybe to the affected vulnerabilities, or to the vulnerabilities that has been discovered by assessing the cloud infrastructure assessment. Then at the runtime protection, we have the cloud detection and response, and also the cloud workload protection. At this stage, you've already had your applications up and running, and one of the things you want to do is to continuously monitor those applications, their performance for exposures and sensitive data not being exposed. You also want to detect unusual behavior and also active threats, then also understand the running process and map, and to be able to map the network connections that are also associated to that particular applications. One of the things that is able to address this, the way FortiSnap work, is the software development life cycle, from the building time, development time of those applications to the runtime when they are already in the in the production environment. So we'll see a lot of engines that has to do with from the code system for scanning those codes for secure coding, in identifying vulnerabilities, identifying weaknesses of those code, and to ensure that they also fall into the CI/CD pipeline by also integrating into infrastructure as a code findings and host vulnerabilities, most especially when you integrate it with your cloud service and runtime. So all this actually follows the development life cycle of the application from the coding from the coding stage up to the runtime stage when the application is fully deployed and being utilized. So I think 1 minute. I've explained this. So I have a video that I really want to play to ensure to showcase some of the functionalities of this of the FortiSnap.
For our subject matter experts, round of applause. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Technical team will still be working on the video. Okay, so there's one more thing I would like to add. One of the things we'll be deliberate about doing is those that are already on the cloud, FortiGates, either on premises or in the cloud. One of the things our firm will be deliberate about is a health check at no cost for you. Yeah. So if you're interested, just after the event, see me personally. This one you have to talk to me. If you don't talk to me, you won't get that freebies. So see me personally. So we have one of our own people, just 10 minutes. He's going to tell us about his experience with the cloud, his experience with the partner as well, and just give us a brief about what they do. So, with a round of applause, let's welcome Mr. Nathaniel Ashiagbo, the CEO of CodeSys. Let's clap until he gets here. Let's clap until he gets here.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I don't normally do this, but because of the partnership we've had with DigiTank, I decided to step in and then talk to you about how we've used cloud and our partnership with DigiTank. So, like you said, my name is Nathaniel Ashiagbo, co-founder and CEO for CodeSys Ghana Limited. So we are strictly a software engineering company. We've been in the business for the past 15 years. We don't make noise, but I'm sure most of you have used our products from our clients. So we've been on AWS for the past 10 years. Most of our clients are in the health sector, the insurance sector. I'm sure enterprise insurance, they are our clients. If you see any vehicle with enterprise insurance registered, that means they went through our solution to get their policies. We also currently run a CPD platform for health professionals who want to renew their annual license with either the Pharmacy Council, Medical and Dental Council, or applications developed by CodeSys. And these applications have been running on AWS for the past 10 years. And since then, in 2015, we started in 2015, we built an application that is meant to give free software for institutions in the education sector to manage their data. So since then, we went further. During the COVID era, we built one of the best COVID testing platforms in the country. So during the time, Emirates decided to block flights because people were using fake test results to land in Dubai and the UAE. We were part of the team that helped them with a solution that ensured that every test result that went through the system is accurate and valid. So all these applications, we rely on AWS services to do that. When it comes to file storage, we rely on S3 buckets to store files, EC2 instances to virtualize all our applications within the AWS infrastructure. Now, when it comes to the AI, before ChatGPT came in, we actually built, in collaboration with another company, we built an AI that detected fall armyworm on crops, which ended up winning a prize from USAID in South Africa in 2018. That was around $50,000. So we've been leveraging on AWS services to build applications that have been helping institutions all across the country. Even outside Ghana, we've done solutions for companies in New Zealand, like a food portal where all the food manufacturing companies were on that platform. Now these applications too were hosted on AWS instances. Now for the health sector, our CPD platform, we process videos. We never store video on YouTube or Vimeo. The videos are processed on AWS infrastructure. When video come in, we process them in multiple bit rates. All these are done by AWS service. So when you can watch the video on low internet bandwidth, these videos will not buffer and we'll watch them smoothly. So all this while, we've been paying for AWS services, but along the line we realized the exchange rates kept going up. So one day we wake up in the morning, we are paying about 5,000 cedis for AWS services. The next morning we end up paying about 10,000 cedis. So we started scaling down our usage on AWS infrastructure. So luckily we met DigiTank and we told them about our current problems. And eventually they came up with a solution that actually helped us. So now we don't think about how we are spending so much on AWS. DigiTank is able to help us to optimize the cost to make sure we only focus on the software engineering aspect. So as of now, we don't worry about how much we pay AWS or anything. We leave everything to DigiTank to handle for us. And we focus on the quality software that we give to our clients. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nathaniel. It was a pleasure having you here with us. Thank you. So right about now, we already talked about migration to the cloud and having our workload backed up for disaster to avoid all of those things. So we'll be looking into what to do next when your data has been migrated to the cloud. So to take us on to that session, we would have Wisdom, Nimako, and Autry take us through the session. And they'll be talking about the generative AI, unlocking innovation for business and government. So pretty much, after your data is on the cloud, you have to work on those data. So let's have Wisdom. Please a clap for him.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet and interact with you. My name is Wisdom, and there are two things about me I would like to share with you. One is good, one is bad. Which one should I start with? The bad. Okay. So the bad thing about me is that, unfortunately, I'm a Manchester United fan. So you can imagine that I'm having a very bad season, right? Now, the good thing about me is that I work with Digitank Africa, and I work as a cloud solutions architect, right? So today, the purpose of this presentation is to help you to make a decision when it comes to generative AI. Now, AI has already been pre-existing, okay? Okay, thank you. So AI has already been pre-existing, but we want to focus on the ability of AI to generate its own original content, right? So AI is basically being able to use pre-existing data to make predictive analysis or to do classification. But generative AI changes the whole playground in the sense that it's able to generate on its own accord original content that could make your development or anything that you are doing in your organization very fast. So the agenda, as you could see, is that I'll throw a little background about how generative AI came into the scene, and then we will discuss the innovation opportunities that lie in this market for your business and how you can capitalize on generative AI to diverse revenue streams, to be able to capture more markets, and also be able to make insightful decisions through generative AI. Then we'll talk about the fact that for you to be able to make the best out of generative AI, it needs to work with your own domain-specific data, right? Other than that, Gen AI is just an application, but it becomes of use to your business when it's working with your data. Does it make sense? Right? Then lastly, we'll talk about how AWS is positioning some services to empower you to make use of generative AI. So let's delve right into it. Okay. Now before, I shouldn't have shown this slide, but currently, right, what do you think is the magic word in sales currently? Any hand? What do you think is the magic word in sales? Whether you are watching a YouTube ad or you are on TikTok or a company is trying to sell you something, there is a magic word that lies in the sales pitch. Who can tell us? Just two people, two persons. One from the back. Should I pick at random? All right. I'll pick our wonderful lady here. Hello. Please, what do you think is the magic word in sales currently? AI. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you very much. So it's already showing on the slide. I wanted to tease your mind about it, but since I've already given myself out in terms of that, so let's just delve right into it. Now, every company is telling you that their product is AI empowered. The question is currently your product that you sell to customers or use internally, are they AI empowered? But I want to shift the focus from being just AI empowered to becoming generative AI empowered. So probably next year, you wouldn't just be saying my product is AI empowered, but you'll be saying it's Gen AI empowered, right? So that's where we want to head into. So in the year 2023, something happened in the world of technology, right? Generative AI took the world by storm. It had a rapid ascent to the forefront of global conversations. In every business boardroom meeting, generative AI were being discussed. We also saw an influx of capital being pouring into the generative AI space. Articles, news were being written about generative AI. Now, for individuals and businesses, the task was then to understand what generative AI could do for your business and how could you test out the idea of generative AI. That was in the year 2023. Now, in 2024, people started moving into production, started testing out the idea of generative AI and what it could do for their business. Okay, so let's take a typical example. ChatGPT, which is owned by OpenAI, was launched in November of 2023. And within 2 years, 2 months, that's between November to January, ChatGPT had about 100 million subscribers, becoming the fastest consumer product in the world. So imagine what that can do, generative AI can do to your business if it's well positioned. How it could drive customer value in your business. So in 2024, people started rolling out the idea, just like what ChatGPT had, introducing conversational chatbots into their services. Now the question is, if we've seen what happened in 2023, we are seeing we saw what happened in 2024 as production workloads, what is happening in 2025? So AI has moved away from being just perception AI, where we have speech recognition, deep research, and maybe, let's say, OCR, okay? Being able to move away from that point and then come into the world of generative AI, like we saw in 2023 with ChatGPT. Now, where the world is headed toward is agentic AI. And from the presentation Enoch did, we saw how you could have AI as an agent carry out migrations on your behalf with just you giving approvals for the AI to carry out the migration. So what could have taken you 3 years to achieve, AI could help you cut down the timeline and the cost that would have gone into it in few months or let's say weeks. So this is where the world is headed. Now, it's also headed in the direction of physical AI. I believe we all might have seen what Tesla is doing with the humanoid robots, right? So that's where the world is also headed towards, where maybe the next time you are coming to a Digitank event, you have a physical AI robot standing there welcoming you, scanning your your details, right? So the question now is, if you take your current business, where do you think you sit when it comes to your AI journey? Are you still at the perception level where you are trying to extract data, make sense out of it, or you've started the journey of generative AI, or you've started embedding agents into your AI, right? So the purpose of this presentation is to help you to make the decision to start the journey. So let's take a look at the innovation opportunities that lies in there for businesses like yours. So generically, there are about 4 broader scopes of use cases when it comes to generative AI. The first and chief being new user experience, right? With generative AI, you're able to provide new user experience to your customers and employees, so your stakeholders. So you're able to help them to be able to make conversations with the product that you have, the product catalog and what have you. Also, the ability to improve your employees' productivity. So conversational search of files. So instead of your HR or your salesperson probably having, whilst on call, trying to figure out what the conversation was like with a customer some 2 weeks ago, he can, or the individual can just use conversation to query the AI, provide the content that based on the conversations you had with company ABCD, this is the file I think you're looking for. So it reduces the time your employees will take to complete mundane tasks, therefore boosting employee productivity. The third being ability to get insight from data, right? So being able to extract necessary data. So let's assume you're in the insurance, financial claim industries, and you need to have human beings review a lot of files, claim files, right? Why don't you position generative AI in the midst, where it's able to query based on parameters what you actually want to look out for in the claim, and have the AI also auto-suggest, that is becoming an agent, auto-suggest whether the claim should be accepted or not, and just have a human being in the midst to give the final approval. That could also be a use case for your business. Then finally, we talk about the ability of generative AI to be able to create original content. So for you to be able to capture new markets, you need to be able to bring out marketing ideas at a very faster pace. But if you are going to think about content creation in your own capacity. It's going to be slow. But Gen AI could help hasten that process. For instance, if you visit ChatGPT today and tell ChatGPT that you have a business idea of doing ABCD for a specific niche in the market, ask GPT to draft a marketing plan for you, like a 2-week campaign plan. ChatGPT will be able to jumpstart your thinking process by rolling out 2 weeks plan for you. What if instead of having ChatGPT, which is trained on public data, you can create an internal tool trained on your own domain-specific data, which understands your customers and your business, and then be able to draft a plan for you instead of just using public data? This is where we want you to be. This is the decision we want you to make for your business, right? So I'll just quickly touch on some various use cases I've already spoken about. So in terms of enhancing customer experience, you're able to create chatbots, virtual assistants, even what we call the intelligent contact centers, right? So if a customer goes to your website and make a query, it can relay the query to an intelligent contact center that can speak to the individual as though a human person and help the human person to make a decision on your product without any human intervention. How about boosting employee productivity and creativity? I've spoken about the fact that you can do conversational searches, right? Ability for your employees to create content at the fly without necessarily having to think a lot. For developers, when we came in, I saw a bit of people, a number of people coding, right? What if you could have Gen AI do the auto suggestion for you? So this is how you can boost your employee productivity using generative AI. Now, with all the use cases I'm mentioning, you can take a cue from it to understand that Gen AI doesn't just meet enterprise businesses. You can be a small business, but the fact that you have all these potentials means that you can also start leveraging on generative AI. So you do not need to tell yourself whilst you're sitting here that I'm a small business and probably this far reach. No. This can help you to actually accelerate your growth as a business. Finally, let's talk about how generative AI could help you optimize business processes. So you could design something like an intelligent document search product that within your internal data, the files, the document repositories that you have, this AI just goes in and scans everything, all the final details and important details, and through natural language, your employees could query for the appropriate files that they want for certain meetings. Also get the appropriate insight that they want to make decisions from your company files. So this could be one other thing that you could leverage on. Let's take Amazon as a use case. How many of us shop on Amazon? Great. Have you interacted with the shopping assistant? The AI shopping assistant? Right. So the AI shopping assistant is called Refix. And what Refix is able to Amazon did. You know, the elder brother of AI is machine learning. So through machine learning, Amazon has been able to create this model for Refix that is trained on Amazon's product catalog, customer reviews, Q&As, right? So that it could easily assist you once you come onto the site to make a decision. It's also do a comparison of products for you. So probably you are just searching for a shoe, but there is a shoe from this brand and that brand. Through the domain you are coming from, let's say you are coming from Africa, probably a lot of customers who go to the site order from a specific brand. There might be a reason. So the generative AI is able to help you auto-suggest to you that because you are coming from this region, I think you might like this, right? So it helps the people who visit your site to make decisions easily because they can get recommendations that are personalized towards them and their experiences. So that's for Refix. Now, they also have customer reviews, which is Gen AI powered. Okay, so what happens is that Gen AI reads through all the customer reviews in there and is able to paraphrase and use it as a product highlight on their product page. So you see some highlights that summarize under the product. All that is done by generative AI on the Amazon site. And we have Amazon Pharmacy, which I won't delve, but it's basically helping people to get prescriptions at a faster rate based on generative AI. So because most of us come from the financial industry, I chose to pick a use case for the financial industry. So for instance, if you take a look at the financial industry, let's assume that a transaction has been flagged. What's the rate at which you can quickly investigate whether the flag is a false positive or it's actually true? So Gen AI can be there in that mix to help you quickly make a decision instead of waiting 3 business days to make a decision. Then the customer will be waiting why my transaction has been flagged. You understand? So being able to put in, have Gen AI in that mix to help you cut down that time, you are making the customer happy. They are making more decisions on your product. So you're also increasing revenue. Then another one being personalized marketing. So I've spoken a bit about it. I won't touch much about it. Then the last will be the ability to automate claims, which I've also kind of delved into, where you have a document intelligence product that could fast track the claim process, okay, for your business. So this could be a particular use case for the financial sector. Now, Gen AI application still remains an application until it's working with your domain-specific data. And this is why we are saying that your data is what's going to make the difference. So most people are just looking at LLMs, that's the large language models like DALL-E or let's say GPT to infuse into their application, right? That's what most organizations are looking at. But what most organizations are missing is the fact that for you to be able to have an efficient generative AI application, it needs to be backed by a solid and effective data strategy. So internally, currently, what do you have as a data architecture in your system or in your environment? Do you have a data lake, okay, that consolidates all the data in your environment, whether coming from websites, a landing page, business application? Are you able to consolidate all that into one pool and then create analysis out of it? So this is where you have to start from. Consolidate all the data in your environment. Don't have them in silos. Then from there, you are able to do data integration where you can extract. It's like, how many of us have used Power BI before? If you are loading data into Power BI, you don't just load data into Power BI. You need to transform. Other than that, the data is just dummy. So that's where data integration comes in. AWS provides you the services to be able to transform the data that you bring into the consolidated area, okay, so that it becomes more sensible and ready to be used by the generative AI application that sits at the top. But you don't just integrate it and leave it at that. You also implement compliance. So I believe some people mentioned the reason why they cannot move to the cloud is for compliance reasons. Good news is that AWS allows you to implement compliance checks into your generative AI application. So that's how we want you to start thinking, that you need to start getting a data strategy in place for your generative AI modernization journey. Could you help me with the next slide? Great. So just like what I was saying, without your domain-specific data, generative AI is still generative AI, and it's just an application. But once you customize it with your own internal data, it becomes a generative AI that knows your business and your customers. Currently, ChatGPT doesn't know your customers, right? Unless maybe you go and upload your customer data on ChatGPT, which is not good. So why don't you build one internally that uses your own internal data? So how can you get your internal data to work with your generative AI application? There are 3 major ways. And I will talk much about the easiest option, which is the RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So with Retrieval Augmented Generation, what we are telling you is that you do not need to retrain an existing model. All that you need to do is that the data sources that come or serve as the augmentation point for your LLM, so let's assume you are using GPT as the background of your generative AI application. The external data that is coming in, you can input what you call embeddings API. That will just be changing the output from the LLMs based on the customer query. So you are not really making changes to the foundational model. Leave it as it is. It's cheap, lean, and helps you to scale quickly. But just use a retrieval augmented system, and then it will be changing the output based on the customer query. So this is where I suggest everybody could start from. But there is also fine-tuning of AI models, where you take sample size of your internal data and use it to retrain an existing model to get a new model that works for your business. That is for fine-tuning. And lastly is the continued pre-training, where you tell the existing model that I think these are your limitations, I want to extend it. So you need to retrain the entire model all over again. But I think that's far-fetched for now. You can quickly start with retrieval augmented generation. Let's assume you run a travel agency and you want to implement a virtual assistant in the platform where your customers visit to book flights. Customer profiles. So what you do is that the data that you have, customer profiles like their past trips, the web history, the travel preferences. What you do is that you marry that data with company data like flight and hotel inventory, promotions, and similar traveling details. So with these two married, you can then customize the AI model to personalize the recommendations that the model will be giving to a certain individual. How many of us use TikTok? I believe all of us. Even if you don't raise your hands, I believe you use TikTok. So I will share a personal testimony. A time came I wanted to rent, and I visited TikTok. For 5 straight months, the only thing I was seeing on TikTok was about rent. And the moment I rented, the following 2 weeks, the only thing I was seeing on TikTok was decor. How do you think that's possible? Personalization. That's why people are addicted to TikTok, because they've been able to have their models personalized for every individual. So what if your website could be personalized? So let's assume you sell insurance products. Could you have, based on your customer data, their age, the school they attend, the kind of industry they work in, could you recommend a specific use case of your insurance product to them and personalize the website in that sense? Okay, so that's what basically we are talking about. I will just quickly delve into the fact that every one of us can kickstart our Gen AI journey by moving quickly and then customizing and scaling, right? So let me just touch on it. What you need to do is right from today, I believe most of us have booked sessions with us. You need to start considering use cases, lean, smaller use cases that can quickly scale in your environment, right? And Digitank will be there to help you through envisioning sessions and other workshops for you to be able to quickly do that. So once you're able to identify a use case, you can customize it using your internal data, right? And then from there, you are able to scale to production. So that's what we are talking about, so that you can get business value out of generative AI and be able to serve your customers well. One thing we are also talking about is that you need to build AI or generative AI responsibly, in the sense that it should include all these things, from fairness all the way to robustness. Okay. Let's touch on the best practices that you need to consider. So for the best practices, you need to put your people first. there are a lot of use cases about generative AI, but what can help your people internally in the company to quickly adopt generative AI? You need to consider them first. Are they even trained to quickly use these tools? Digital can be there to assist in workshops, trainings for your team members, right? And once you've put your people first, what you do is that you assess the risk of the use case that you want to implement. So for instance, let me give you two scenarios. A Gen AI that's being built to detect tumor on X-ray scans, and a Gen AI that is just going to recommend movies. Which one do you think has higher risk and impact? Obviously, the one to detect the tumor on the X-ray scans. So if the risk of the use case that you want to have is high, you need to do a lot of testing. That's what we are trying to talk about. Please, so a lot of testing. And then from there, you can scale. I will quickly touch on the AI stack, what AWS can help you to achieve with generative AI. It starts all the way from the infrastructure level. So for some organizations, they want to build their own models, not use what pre-exists. So at the infrastructure level, AWS provides you all these services to allow you to build your own custom model in the cloud. So you can have specific GPUs that can run inferences and your own models in the cloud. Please, next slide. All right. So Amazon SageMaker is a managed service that can help you to build your own custom model in the cloud and also implement security whilst building. Next slide, please. And at the core of infrastructure, AWS has infused Gen AI in there, so allowing you to even get started with Gen AI at the core of the infrastructure that you use to build your AI models in the cloud. Then we talk about the tools you could build LLMs with, which is Amazon Bedrock. So Amazon Bedrock is, think of it as a room with a lot of models in there. Just bring your data, retrain a model, and use it, right? But in there, it comes with a lot of securities that you could customize in terms of access levels and what have you, so that your people can have access to Amazon Bedrock as and when they need to. Okay, next slide. So none of the customer's data is used to train the underlying model. Okay, and then all data is encrypted, and data remains in the region where the API is being processed. And compliance, GDPR, HIPAA, ISO, and SOC, SOC, right? So I will just quickly allow my colleague to come and do a video demonstration of the application layer of generative AI in AWS and how it can help your business. So it can help everyone to quickly start their AI journey and start taking advantage of that. So I'll invite my colleague Mordecai, who will do that and close out on today's session.
Yes, thank you very much. Unlike Wisdom, I don't have a bad side. I only come bearing good news. So I'm here to do just three things. I'm only putting flesh to the framework that we have, and then we'll show you what AWS actually has in store for you. Can you go to the previous slide, please? No. 34. Right, so AWS has a wonderful solution for you. Now, one of the beautiful things about this solution is that it fits everywhere, everybody. It's perfect for everyone, for developers, for decision makers, for storytellers, for everybody, and that is Amazon Q. Now, Amazon Q is in the market specifically for your company. So Wisdom told you about the fact that your data is what Amazon Q is working with. So you don't have to take public data to serve your customers. Now, one of the beautiful things about Amazon Q is the fact that it works with you. Now, let's talk access, identity access. For example, in your company, there's a particular document that needs specific people to get access to that document. However, there is also a folder that everybody must get access to it. Typical example, in the accounting department, the CFO must get access to a folder, but an accounting intern must also get access to a particular file in that folder. Now, what Amazon Q is able to do is that it's able to control the access to that particular folder. So the accounting intern is able to get access to his file without getting access to any other file in the folder. And then the CFO is also able to get access to the folder and get access to whatever file that he is supposed to get access to. And that is one of the most beautiful things I admire about Amazon Q. Let's go to the next. Now, with Amazon Q, it's more or less like a suite. So it comes with various packages. We have Q Business, Q in QuickSight, we have Q Developers, and then we have specialized users. That was why I said it's for everybody. Now, for Q Business, we'll watch a video, just a few seconds video on that, and it's able to tell you how you are able to query it. So Wisdom told you that you are able to use your own data, and you don't have to rely on public data. So you are able to make proper research and well-informed analysis with your own data. Now, Q in QuickSight, one of the beautiful things I like about Q in QuickSight is the fact that you're able to tell stories. For most marketing people, sometimes when you are presenting something to your bosses and then you sound too raw, it's a bit of a problem. But with QuickSight, it's able to tailor whatever analysis that you've made, whatever reports that you have, and put it in a storytelling form. So you're able to capture the attention of your bosses all through your presentation without any stress. Now, with a Q developer, it's more or less having your PA when it comes to coding. You forget a certain line and then you just tell him, I need this line, and he's giving it to you there and then. And then we have Q in Connect. Now, for the Q in Connect, for most of us in telecom, I was reading recently on Q in Connect, and I realized that it's able to give you real-time responses, actions, and information for real-time issues. So you get a customer call that I need this resolved immediately. Maybe the contact person doesn't really have much knowledge about the particular issue, but he's able to quickly leverage on Amazon Q in in Connect to easily get answers for them real time without any hassle. All right, so we'll go to the next slide. We will watch a video on Q Business, and then it will tell us briefly what we can do with Q Business. Please check the sound for us.
What if you had a superpower to make that possible? Now you do. Amazon Q Business, your generative AI-powered work assistant, helps you accomplish all your tasks. It connects to your company's data, information, and systems to become an expert on your business, instantly able to help every employee complete their tasks, like Jane in HR, asking Amazon Q Business for help creating a job posting for a new product marketing position. Now Jane is asking Amazon Q to create a social media post for the new role. Or Mateo in sales, asking Amazon Q Business to summarize insights from the customer satisfaction survey for the workshop he ran. Based on these great insights, Mateo asks Amazon Q to create a table with the results that he can share with his team. Or Sanvi in marketing, who just returned from her vacation and is turning to Amazon Q Business for help understanding what was discussed during the team meetings while she was out. Whether it's increasing your productivity, improving the quality of your work, or making more time for innovation and creativity, there is so much more you can do with Amazon Q Business.
Right, so we go to the next one.
Unlock the power of generative BI with Amazon Q and QuickSight, and simplify business intelligence. using natural language prompts. Data stories allow you to generate customizable stories and presentations based on your data. Which can be shared easily across your organization to drive decisions. The new generative AI-powered Q&A experience suggests sample questions, or you can ask your own. Amazon Q then generates mini dashboards presenting related data to explain answer context and provides the best available answers for even the vaguest of questions. With a simple click, executive summaries provide an at-a-glance view of key insights and automatically compare data period over period to surface important trends and accelerate decision-making. With Amazon Q, business analysts can reduce the time it takes to build dashboards from hours to minutes. No need to master syntax. With a natural language prompt, Amazon Q generates the calculation syntax or visuals for you and refines and formats visuals instantly. Amazon Q and QuickSight empowers everyone in your organization to be data-driven. Amazon Q and QuickSight was not trained on customer data, and its governance and data security features meet the most stringent enterprise and government requirements. Start your free trial and unlock the power of
All right, so we'll make the videos available for the sake of time. Would move to what next? I'm sure one of the questions we are probably asking ourselves, and please skip to the next slide, yes. One of the questions we are probably asking ourselves is, okay, so what? After all this, what next? Now, one thing I would advise that we do is to assess ourselves. Ask yourself, am I ready? You do a proper assessment of your team. Ask yourself very important questions. Are we matured enough? Are we financially ready for this? Are my workers ready to handle this solution? Now, that is one of the quickest ways to understand what this solution is and then how it's going to work for you. Feasibility-wise, how is this going to benefit my organization? And then the use cases will now start coming in. Then you know how to fit each use case into the boxes that you've checked. Please to the next slide. So while you do that, you are able to understand what data I would need, what technology must I leverage. Then you compare that to productivity and experience-wise. Then you're able to appreciate the solution properly. This way, it will be very easy for you to adapt to it in your digital transformation journey. Now, afterwards, you now look to empower your team. Try to find innovative tools that you can for them, and that is when AWS comes in. You can leverage our learning needs analysis, where we are able to help you understand where the gaps are in your organization and how to design a proper use case to fit in there. Now, AWS comes in with over 1,000+ learning materials available in AWS Skill Builder that you can leverage on for your team, and you're able to nurture them properly and then bring them up to scale. Now, after everything, you now get the opportunity to validate the expertise of whatever your employees or your colleagues have learned. So they're able to take certifications around AWS Certified Machine Learning Specialty. Now, this will then validate the skills they have. Then you can get started on the various use cases that you come up with. And this is where Digitank comes in. We come in with a host of plans available to support you. One thing I always say is that Digitank is here to carry you along through the entire journey. We don't leave you in the middle of the ocean. So we pick you from the land and we cross the ocean with you. If you want us to bring you back to the land, we can actually do that for you. So we take you through envisioning sessions. We let you test the waters. We give you the opportunity to test it just to know how it feels like. If you like it, we go forward and then we implement for you. And if you don't, we come again and then we try again. So if you want to know more about what Amazon Cure is, you can quickly scan this QR code. You book a session with us. I think from here we're going to have lunch. We can also come around, have a few discussions around what Amazon Cure can do for you in your organization. And I believe everything will be fine with us. So I don't know if Wisdom now has a good side. If not, we'll bring our presentation to an end. We really appreciate your time, the time that you spent with us, and we say God bless you. Can I get an amen? All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. I think we can do better with a round of applause. That's the last segment, so maybe we can clap for the next 30 minutes. That was a joke. That was a joke. All right. Okay, so everything that has a beginning has an end. Sandra, what's next?
Thank you very much, everyone, for taking out your time. Time is precious, it's money. You took it out to be with us today. We don't take it for granted. And as everyone has said, and as Audrey said, we're available to take on the discussion outside of this place. So please feel free to reach out to us, and we will also be in touch with you, obviously. So thank you very much once again. We really do appreciate your time. So before we go for lunch, we would like to just take a few pictures with us, if we don't mind. And we're going to have it in the hall, so you don't have to move anywhere. And afterwards, I believe we've gotten our coupons, right? Please, has everyone gotten their coupons? Lunchtime. For lunch? All right, so I believe we'll get that, definitely. So thank you once again, everyone.
Okay, thank you. One more thing, please, let's do well to scan. This is important to me. Let's do well to scan. We want to engage with each and every one. Yes, so let's do well to scan. Right. And the team members will still be outside. Anyone wearing this evangelistic top, just feel free to talk to the person and we'll preach the gospel to you. Yes, as usual. As we end, let's not forget that the future is already deployed. The future isn't coming. The future is already deployed. Let's all jump into the boats. Let's not be left behind. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Should I also say God bless you all? All right. Bye.